Vanessa stepped out onto the balcony of the grand house and watched as more and more people gathered for the holiday. This girl had always believed the world was a magical place and her life one endless party. Her parents pulled her away from her thoughts and dreams, and she reluctantly turned her head. Her dad and mom were very wealthy, and Vanessa had never questioned where it all came from. She simply adored her parents, who pampered her and never refused her anything. She had also never questioned who they really were until one day, it was too late. Unexpectedly, a fire broke out in the house. It spread rapidly, and people barely had time to escape. That evening, for the first time, the girl wondered if her parents had enemies or if they themselves were someone's enemies. In an instant, weapons appeared in the hands of Vanessa's father and mother. Her father urgently told the nanny to take Vanessa away. Barbara immediately grabbed the teenage girl and, closing her eyes, rushed past the burning sections of the house. She managed to save Vanessa, but it was all over for her parents that day. The girl was left alone. Tears streamed down her face, she couldn't believe they were gone. Barbara gently encouraged the orphan, promising that they could make her stronger even than her parents. Vanessa saw Barbara as powerful, not just in strength but in how she protected children in her care. Barbara told Vanessa she could also learn to protect children like her. At first, Vanessa didn't understand, she had just lost everything, but she trusted Barbara. So, she agreed to become her student. After that day, Vanessa spent the next 8 years at an Elite Nanny Academy, its location classified. Barbara Strike had taken her under her wing, raised her, and trained her. Now, Vanessa was much stronger. Barbara had become the director of the academy, and after years of lessons and training, Vanessa was finally ready for her first serious assignment. Shortly before Vanessa's visit, Barbara had been discussing a lucrative offer with a certain Mr. Paralan. The headmistress promised that with the proposed salary, they could offer the best employees, each with years of experience. But this particular client wanted someone special, someone who had never worked with anyone before. Barbara presented a list of employees next in line for first assignments. Mr. Paralan asked if they were all competent. The headmistress guaranteed that every graduate was proficient in early childhood development and psychology, as well as trained in first aid and self-defense. All employees could drive various vehicles and were trained in cybersecurity. Housekeeping, financial planning, and politics were also part of the curriculum. Then, Barbara asked why Mr. Paralan needed an elite nanny. Oscar Paralan recalled a conversation from 2 weeks ago with someone who admitted to failing their master and promised to make it right. But Oscar only wanted the ledgers, he was preparing to issue a bill to the guilty party. Then he said he'd call Jack, the man he was speaking to, when he needed his services. Right now, he just wanted more milk. Jack didn't quite understand, but Oscar clarified, his son Cody loved chocolate milk. Cody soon appeared, and Oscar noticed how nervous the boy seemed. But Cody took a bold stance and demanded a double portion from Jack due to his oversight. Oscar asked why he wasn't behaving quietly as promised, but Cody had his own requirements. Jack returned with a carton of milk, hands trembling. Oscar shouted that it was no longer needed, but Cody confirmed his order and grabbed the carton. Oscar picked up his son and was about to leave, still demanding milk. Back in Barbara's office, Oscar explained that the boy's mother was no longer around, and he needed someone to take care of the child. Barbara assured him the child would be in good hands and asked if he had a preference among the candidates. Oscar glanced at the folders and quickly pointed to Vanessa's file. For some reason, her resume caught his attention. He demanded that she be assigned to raise his son. Vanessa's specialty was cybersecurity, and Barbara asked if he had a large internet network at home. Upon hearing he didn't, she suggested someone else, one fluent in Italian, another skilled in self-defense, but Oscar refused to listen. He insisted on Vanessa. Barbara looked at him reproachfully but couldn't turn him down. He paid well. She called for Vanessa, who didn't take long to appear. Of course, the girl was nervous, this was her first assignment, but she believed she could do it. When she entered the office, Barbara stood with her back to her, slow to turn. Without facing her, she told Vanessa she had been offered a task. Vanessa, overjoyed, exclaimed she was ready, had been ready for a long time. Barbara interrupted. She hadn't chosen the task for Vanessa, someone else had. She explained that the client had chosen her personally. Going to the table, she pulled out a folder and announced the name, Oscar Paralan. Vanessa was stunned. She knew that name. It had been on the front page of the newspaper years ago. Paralan hit back. A mafia family. She was convinced they were involved in the fire that took her parents' lives. Barbara advised her not to take the assignment, reminding her she had the right to refuse. But Vanessa couldn't turn down her first mission, not after everything Barbara had done for her. Memories of the fire surged through her mind, and she still didn't know why it happened. She had long believed she'd never learn the truth, but now she had a chance. Barbara had promised to make her stronger, and now she was. Without hesitation, Vanessa declared she was ready to take the job. Barbara had her doubts, but Vanessa's resolve convinced her. The girl also considered that Mr. Paralan had a small child, an innocent. The child needed protection, and she was ready to provide it. She also hoped she might discover the truth behind her tragic past. Barbara met Mr. Paralan again and confirmed that the girl had signed the contract. Vanessa had already packed her suitcase and stood ready. As she arrived, Barbara called out Oscar's full name. He stood off to the side, avoiding eye contact. But he turned, and Vanessa saw the man she'd be working for. Oscar was young and strikingly handsome. She was caught off guard and forgot to greet him. Oscar broke the silence, asking Barbara whether the nanny could speak at all. Vanessa thought the question made him seem like an idiot. Then she extended her hand and introduced herself, saying she was pleased to meet and work for him. He returned the sentiment and told her to get in the car when she was ready. While he stepped away, Barbara pulled Vanessa aside to go over her duties. She reminded her not to reveal secrets, embarrass her employer, hack, or fall in love. Vanessa promised she would not let her mentor down. She already felt proud of herself as she headed to the car. The driver, Adam, greeted her and offered to load her suitcase. He found her cute and offered a bit of advice, not to let herself be scared. Cody was only 4 years old. Vanessa wasn't afraid of anything. She thanked him politely and got into the car. Inside, she saw Mr. Paralan with his son. She quickly greeted the boy, asking if he was Oscar's son. The child introduced himself as Cordell, but Oscar interjected everyone just called him Cody. Vanessa greeted him warmly, but Cody told his father he didn't trust her and that she smelled like oranges. Vanessa discreetly sniffed herself, confused. Then she asked where they were going. Cody jumped in, announcing they were headed to a large mansion in the City of Commoners. Oscar clarified they had recently moved from the south. Vanessa assumed that meant Chicago. She pulled out her laptop. Oscar told her there was Wi-Fi in the car and pointed out it had no password. Suddenly, Vanessa heard a click and noticed the lock on her door had dropped. Oscar explained they always drove with locked doors for safety. Vanessa disagreed. If something happened, unlocked doors were safer. She pressed the unlock button, but Oscar locked them again, explaining that if kidnappers tried to grab his son at a traffic light, it was safer this way. Vanessa saw his point and didn't argue. Cody leaned closer to her and asked if his father could also smell the oranges. Vanessa was distracted, thinking about the irony of having unsecured Wi-Fi while getting a lecture on security. Cody peeked at her laptop and asked what she was doing. Vanessa pressed a button, and the privacy window rolled down. Adam turned to ask what they needed. Nothing. Cody remarked that the new nanny was clever. Vanessa raised the window again and suggested to Oscar that he add a Wi-Fi password. He narrowed his eyes but agreed. Soon, they arrived at the mansion on the outskirts of Chicago. Adam told Vanessa to follow Oscar while he handled the luggage. Vanessa quickly took in the surroundings and was surprised: no guards, no cameras. Inside, Oscar told her that her room was on the second floor, second from the left. He explained to Cody that Vanessa would now be his main contact, but the boy protested he wanted to stay with his father. Oscar insisted that Cody should go to Vanessa for any questions. He didn't want his son getting involved in his business. But Cody was upset, thinking his father didn't believe in him. He grew furious, threw his drink on the floor, and ran out. Oscar explained it had been difficult for the boy since his mother's passing. Vanessa noted how attached the child was to his father. Then the girl asked if Cody knew what Oscar was really doing. In response, the man asked if Vanessa knew, and she immediately remembered the notes about his affairs. She admitted she had read some news but hadn't really delved into his business. Oscar, nevertheless, decided to be honest. He admitted that he was actually the deputy of the Paralan Mafia Don. Vanessa was well aware that being the right hand of the mafia head placed him nearly at the same level as the Don. Oscar went on to say he had more enemies than he could count and was sure they would do anything to get to his only son. Cody, as the heir to the Paralan name, was incredibly important. That, he said, was why he needed Vanessa to protect his child. The girl promised she would do everything necessary. This seemed to reassure Mr. Paralan. Vanessa immediately began to ask about her responsibilities and listed some things she could do involving cybersecurity, but Oscar told her it wasn't necessary. Her only task was Cody. She hadn't realized she'd be more of a nanny than anything else. She then brought up the fact that there were no bodyguards, and the staff should probably be checked. Oscar stepped closer and repeated that her only job was to keep an eye on his son. At that moment, Vanessa noticed a drink pouch Cody had thrown on the floor. Mr. Paralan added that since the boy had run off, she should go after him. Vanessa agreed and ran outside to look for the boy, but he was nowhere to be seen. Then she heard a quarrel, Cody's voice shouting. She turned and saw Cody being grabbed by masked men and pushed into the trunk of a van. Vanessa immediately gave chase, hoping to stop the kidnappers, but the van sped away too quickly. She stood there, watching the van disappear, horrified. Her very first day, and the child had been kidnapped. She turned to see Mr. Paralan standing in the doorway and panicked about how to tell him. For a moment she considered chasing the van again, but knew it would be useless. She ran back to the house to report. When she told him masked men had taken Cody, Oscar grabbed her by the arm and demanded they go after the car. Vanessa didn't hesitate, she also wanted to rescue Cody. Grabbing her bag, she asked for the keys, but Adam had already run over. He would be her driver and take her wherever she needed to go. Vanessa promised Oscar she would bring the boy back and told him to report the kidnapping to the police. But Oscar leaned in and said that wouldn't be necessary if she did her job right. The car peeled away at high speed in the direction the van had gone. Vanessa gave directions to Adam and opened her laptop, launching a program to track the van. She had memorized the license plate and was going to use her tools to locate it. Adam asked what she was doing, and Vanessa briefly explained her plan. She checked surveillance footage and confirmed the van had passed a nearby camera less than a minute ago. Everything seemed to be going too smoothly, she suspected it might be a trap. She gave more directions, left, then 2 traffic lights, then right. She began hacking into nearby cell towers for broader access. As she worked, she muttered to herself, prompting Adam to ask again what she was doing. Vanessa didn't stop. Soon she located 3 phone signals coming from a nearby building. When they arrived, she spotted the kidnappers' van parked outside. She instructed Adam to drive around the building and wait on the far side while she retrieved Cody. A bodyguard stood at the entrance, clearly trained, but strangely without a weapon. Vanessa approached and warned him she was trained and asked him to open the door peacefully. He leaned on it smugly and refused. Without waiting, Vanessa struck, bending her elbows sharply and delivering a hit to his solar plexus. As he doubled over, she followed with a swift strike to his neck. The towering man collapsed, dropping his sunglasses. Vanessa stepped over him and entered the building, finding herself in an empty kitchen. Grabbing a metal tray from a table, she armed herself. On the far side of the kitchen, she peered through a round window into a dimly lit hall. There stood a man and a woman, guarding a bound Cody. Without hesitation, Vanessa slammed open the door and stormed in. The two thugs took fighting stances. Vanessa swung the tray at the man, who ducked. He swung at her, but she blocked with the tray, causing him pain. While he recoiled, she aimed a heel kick to his face, but he blocked it and prepared to retaliate. Before he could strike, Vanessa smashed the tray over his head. While both assailants staggered, she ran to Cody, scooped him up, still tied, and fled the building. Outside, Adam cheered as she approached with the boy. Vanessa placed Cody in the car and hugged him tightly, then began to untie him, asking if he was hurt. The boy sat silently, bent forward, and Vanessa remembered sitting just like that after the fire that destroyed her home. She hugged him again and promised he was safe now. Then Adam coughed. Vanessa noticed he looked unwell and grew concerned until she saw a gun in his hand, pointed at her. Adam coldly told her to get out of the car. He ordered her to walk away, leaving the child, and offered her $2 million in exchange. Vanessa realized with horror that Adam was working with the kidnappers, or rather, he was part of something bigger. He clarified that he wasn't associated with the low-level goons Oscar had hired to test her. Vanessa understood now this had been a setup. Adam added that the boy had never been out of Oscar's sight and that now was the perfect moment to complete the test. Vanessa placed herself between Cody and the gun. She said she would never let Adam carry out his plan. He urged her to be smart and take the money rather than end up with a bullet in her head. Out of the corner of her eye, Vanessa saw her open laptop. She kept talking to distract Adam while slowly reaching for the device. Her fingers searched for the right button. When she refused again, Adam prepared to pull the trigger. At last, Vanessa pressed a button. The windshield wipers squeaked across the glass, catching Adam's attention. While he turned, she pressed another key. The privacy screen between driver and passengers rose suddenly and jammed Adam's hand, making him drop the gun. Seizing the opportunity, Vanessa pushed the car door open and fell backward, holding Cody close to shield him. She landed on her back, protecting the boy. Then she got up and ran, Cody in her arms, not looking back. She whispered reassurances to the child as she ran, that they'd be home soon, that he had been very brave. Approaching the house, she saw Adam's car already parked in the yard. Panic rose inside her. What if he had already returned and was lying? Then she saw Adam standing calmly next to Mr. Paralan, acting like nothing had happened. Cody wriggled from her arms and ran to his father. Vanessa stood frozen, realizing something was deeply wrong. Oscar patted his son on the head, praised Vanessa for doing an excellent job, and told her she was hired. In that moment, Vanessa understood every part of the encounter, even Adam's betrayal, had been part of the test. But he was just doing his job. Mr. Paralan remarked that he wasn't doing it very well, considering Vanessa had escaped before he pulled the trigger. The girl, although still a little angry, repeated that the doors in the car should not be locked for this very reason. Oscar agreed, and Cody even began to praise her for being fast. He hugged her tightly. Vanessa realized that Oscar had involved his son in a dangerous situation, but at the same time, he couldn't warn Cody. Doing so might have left the boy with psychological trauma. Oscar had wanted to test whether Vanessa could be intimidated or bribed, and he was satisfied with the result. He explained that previous nannies had failed similar tests. Vanessa promised to keep a close eye on Cody but asked Oscar to trust her. He refused. He didn't trust anyone. When Vanessa asked why, he admitted that his wife had disappeared a year ago. Then he pulled a small, blood-stained wedding ring from his pocket, the size fit for a woman. He added that the police had failed to report the truth. His wife had been murdered. Oscar's face darkened with grief. He even closed his eyes, overcome by the memory. Vanessa noticed how little Cody lowered his eyes, embarrassed and saddened by his father's pain. She gently asked Oscar not to talk about it now, since the moment wasn't right. Oscar understood what she meant and asked his son to return to his room. But Cody objected, saying he was fine and didn't want to go back. Vanessa glanced at the windows and asked which one was Cody's room. The boy frowned, not understanding why she wanted to know. Vanessa joked that it was probably the one with lace curtains. Cody grumbled that it wasn't, and Oscar clarified that his room was on the opposite side of the house. Vanessa guessed again, the one with flower pots. The boy groaned and dragged her by the arm, insisting on showing her himself. Before she left, Oscar reminded Vanessa to come to his office in 10 minutes. She nodded and followed Cody, with Oscar watching them go. Adam, standing nearby, commented that he liked Vanessa and warned Oscar not to scare her off. But Oscar believed that if Vanessa could be scared, then she didn't belong there in the first place. As they walked, Cody suspected that Vanessa had lied just to get into his room. She explained that she wanted to see where he lived to understand him better. This surprised Cody. No one had said that to him before. Vanessa was worried, too. Cody had handled his kidnapping far too well, and she was glad it didn't seem to affect him deeply. When they arrived, Cody explained the room hadn't been cleaned yet since they had only recently moved in. Some things were still left from the previous owners, children's things. Vanessa actually liked that. She told Cody he didn't have to show her anything if he didn't want to, but he shrugged and said it was just a room. Inside, the space was large and messy. Empty chocolate milk cartons were everywhere. Vanessa also noticed dozens of identical costumes, more than an undertaker might need. In one corner was a creative station, full of paints and paper. Vanessa thought he needed to cut back on sugar and maybe expand his wardrobe. As she looked around, Cody quickly hid some toys under a pillow, clearly embarrassed. He explained that the maid didn't like him much. Vanessa smiled gently, unsure how that could be. He was wonderful. She reached out to stroke his hair, but he pulled away and told her sharply that he didn't need a new mother. Vanessa didn't try again. She understood that no one could replace his mother. She told him she could stop caring if he didn't want her to, but he simply replied that she should just do her job. Vanessa played along, agreeing to follow his orders. Then he reminded her she needed to go see his father. Vanessa realized it was time and headed for Oscar's office. On the way, she reflected on how stubborn the boy was, but also how understandable that was. At the office door, she knocked lightly. Oscar invited her in. This time, Vanessa noticed he seemed different. In this setting, he didn't look like the deputy of a mafia don, just a man trying to protect his family. She informed him that Cody was in his room and asked if that was safe. Oscar replied that as long as the boy was in the house, it was safe. He admitted that he had pressured Vanessa earlier, but she told him she didn't mind. She promised to get to the bottom of everything, no matter the cost. She believed that the same people who killed Mrs. Paralan were now targeting Cody, and she was determined to protect him. Oscar confirmed that the threats had begun when his uncle, the mafia don, declared Cody as his successor. Vanessa pointed out that her contract hadn't mentioned anything about family threats. She added that such obligations weren't part of her original terms. Realizing Oscar probably hadn't read the fine print, Vanessa decided to use it as leverage. Oscar remembered she had self-defense training. Vanessa, however, reminded him she was freshly graduated. He should have chosen someone more experienced. But Oscar insisted he had hired exactly who he needed. Vanessa paused, unsure what he meant. Did he know about her past? Had he guessed she was here for answers? But Oscar only said he didn't want anyone else. He asked her what conditions she needed to stay. Vanessa realized this task was much bigger than expected. Oscar began offering compensation, increased pay, a house in Mallorca, political connections. Vanessa dismissed them. None of it mattered if she failed. Then she asked for full access to everything she needed. Oscar asked her to clarify. She said absolutely everything, insisting it was necessary to protect Cody. He was intrigued by her request. Her dedication struck him as selfless, but Vanessa corrected him, she just wanted to survive the mission. Oscar said there were some things he couldn't share, like business accounts or client data. Vanessa promised she didn't care about his criminal dealings. She wouldn't look where she didn't need to. The conversation started to amuse Oscar. He asked again what she hoped to gain from all this. Vanessa replied with a personal request, a glowing review. She was risking her life for Cody, and if everything went well, she wanted her work to be appreciated. She also asked that Oscar become the top patron of the Elite Nanny Academy. Oscar considered her request and found it modest. He promised to do it in a year when they left Chicago. But then he turned serious. He warned her that if anything happened to his son, things would be very different. Vanessa would regret not dying during her mission. Though she was not a fearful person, Oscar's threat chilled her. His face was so stern she thought he might hit her, but he didn't. He simply told her to make herself at home. Leaving the office, Vanessa knew he meant what he said. She could see it in his eyes, he wouldn't hesitate to kill her if she failed. But she reminded herself, elite nannies never make mistakes. In the hallway, she found Adam dragging her suitcase upstairs. She could have carried it herself, but Adam told her she'd been through enough. He was glad she was staying. He invited her to inspect the house. After all, it would be her home for the next year, unless something irreversible happened. Vanessa couldn't tell whose side Adam was really on, but she followed his suggestion. The house felt like a palace. She walked out to the garden to check the security. Near the fence, she spotted a familiar face, the guard she had knocked unconscious during the rescue. She realized he must have faked it. The fence was 3 meters high, topped with barbed wire. She saw more guards patrolling, huge men like the first one. There were fountains and elegant features, but the space Cody played in didn't seem child-friendly. Vanessa decided she would take him to a proper park sometime. Back inside, she searched for her room. It was spacious and nicely furnished, but luxury wasn't on her mind. She needed to charge her laptop. But when she opened her bag, she froze, it was missing. She retraced her steps and realized she had left it in the car when she jumped out with Cody. Looking out the window, she hoped to grab it right away, but the car was gone. Oscar came into the room and invited her to dinner. Vanessa immediately asked about the laptop, and he promised Adam would retrieve it. She then asked about Cody and was told the boy would be dining in his room tonight. Vanessa wondered how often Cody ate alone. Oscar said he had been doing so a lot lately. She suggested it was due to his mother's death, but Oscar turned on her sharply. He didn't want her opinions on his son's emotions. He reminded her that her only concern was the boy's safety. At that moment, Cody stood outside the door, trying to eavesdrop. Vanessa heard the rustling. Oscar didn't notice and walked away. Vanessa realized Cody had heard everything, and it upset her. He was still just a child. She made her way to the dining room and was shown to a massive table. There was a ridiculous amount of food. Though she was hungry, it felt excessive. Mr. Paralan sat across from her, ready to eat. While looking at her, the girl, trained in etiquette, still felt a little uncomfortable. At the academy, she had been taught the art of small talk with employers, so she decided to initiate a conversation. Vanessa asked what had brought Mr. Paralan to Chicago. When he replied that it was just business, she found it a little strange. He wasn't part of the local mafia, and that particular syndicate had no influence here. She also knew the local families would not welcome outside interference. Vanessa suggested that a man with Oscar's status could make a lot of noise in the city. Her employer agreed in a calm tone, acknowledging the truth in her words. The nanny noticed that Oscar didn't seem to feel remorse. It was as if he didn't realize the level of risk he was exposing his son to. She kept the conversation going and asked about Oscar's goals for the coming year. He didn't quite understand the question, so Vanessa clarified if there were no major plans, perhaps she could teach Cody a language or the arts. Oscar hesitated. It seemed like he had thought about it before. He admitted that Cody needed to learn something useful, but also stressed that, as the heir to the Paralan family, he had certain expectations to meet. The door to the dining room opened, and a maid entered with a drink. Vanessa found the timing strange and suspicious. Everyone here seemed like shadows, and she had only really interacted with the driver. It was also odd that she was the only one invited to dinner with the boss. Still, she assumed it was a gesture for her first day and decided to go along with it. She asked what Cody usually did during the day and was surprised to hear that his father often took him to work. Vanessa didn't think that was suitable and declared that it would no longer happen. At that, she noticed Oscar's mood shift, his jaw tightened, and his fists clenched. Mr. Paralan ordered the maid, Julia, to leave and indicated he wanted to clarify something. Vanessa caught a strange look in the maid's eyes, reaffirming her feeling that something was off. Oscar rose and asked her to follow him. Vanessa wanted to ask a question, but he told her not to say another word. When they stopped, Vanessa quickly apologized for speaking out of turn. Oscar interrupted, saying she didn't need to apologize, he actually agreed with her. Then, surprisingly, he asked her to pretend to be afraid. She didn't understand why, but he repeated the request, squeezing her hands tightly. Reluctantly, she agreed. The guard then saw Oscar shaking Vanessa, and she screamed as if in mortal fear. Oscar quickly pulled her behind a tree and explained he only had one goal for Cody. He was about to continue when a rustling noise interrupted him. A moment later, a huge guard appeared, blocking the moonlight. Oscar asked what was going on and learned there were problems in the 3rd district. He excused himself to handle the matter, leaving Vanessa alone. She stood there trying to understand why Oscar had gone to such lengths to keep this conversation private. The next morning, Vanessa heard Cody speaking in a threatening tone. Opening his door, she saw him interrogating a duckling in dim light. It felt bizarre that a child so young was practicing intimidation, but she invited him to join her for breakfast. Cody declined, saying he'd eat in his room. Vanessa smiled and joked that he was probably afraid to eat human food in front of her. Cody looked confused by her term. She elaborated, playfully accusing him of being a vampire. After all, he never ate in front of anyone, and he only came out in shadows. Cody firmly denied the claim and said he just didn't want to eat with her. Vanessa responded that she'd already eaten anyway and the kitchen was all his. She left him alone but asked to meet later downstairs. Once alone, Cody was annoyed. He didn't understand why she wouldn't just leave. He looked at the duckling and told it to stop staring at him like that. After breakfast, Vanessa washed dishes and was glad Cody had eaten. On one of the plates, she saw he'd drawn a vampire face with fangs using sauce. It felt cheeky, but she smiled. At least he had an appetite. While cleaning, someone entered the kitchen. Vanessa turned and saw a woman in an apron. It was Mrs. Kenneth. The woman asked what Vanessa was doing there. Vanessa calmly explained that she'd be handling Cody's breakfasts and lunches from now on and promised not to interfere with Mrs. Kenneth's duties. The older woman noted Vanessa was good at cleaning. Reaching for a cabinet, nearly pushing Vanessa aside, the maid said Mr. Paralan wanted coffee. As she prepared it, she asked how Vanessa had slept. Vanessa lied and said it was fine, though in truth, she hadn't closed her eyes, haunted by the feeling she was being watched. Vanessa asked Mrs. Kenneth if she'd seen her laptop. The maid didn't understand the appeal of such devices and said books were better. At that moment, Oscar's voice called from the door, asking where his coffee was. Vanessa turned, surprised at how calm he seemed. She knew it was just an act. Oscar noticed her expression and asked if there was a problem. She didn't respond, only asking if Cody was okay. She still didn't fully understand Oscar's behavior last night. He had tried to tell her something about his son but had stopped. Outside Cody's door, she heard him once again talking sternly to the duckling and realized where he was picking up such habits. Since the boy was occupied, Vanessa returned to her room and found the laptop had been placed on the table. Eager to investigate, she began searching for information on Oscar. Opening a search engine, she typed in Paralan crimes in the South. She quickly discovered that the Paralan family had been running a mafia group for a century. Oscar's uncle was now the Don, having inherited the position after his older brother died. With no sons of his own, he made Oscar his deputy, and Cody was the next heir. It began to make sense why Cody behaved the way he did. Vanessa dug deeper into dark web forums. Despite his short time in Chicago, Oscar had already made enemies. She couldn't understand why he would bring such heat upon himself unless his business back home had dried up. Then she heard Cody calling her mad ant. The insult didn't bother her. She quickly closed the laptop and went to see what he needed. In his room, she saw the duckling stuffed into her laptop bag. Cody was searching for his favorite tie. He had a night event with his father. Vanessa realized he didn't know that Oscar wasn't planning to take him. She tried to find a way to explain gently. She suggested they stay home and play while Oscar handled business, but Cody was convinced his father needed him, especially since he was going to meet people who hated the Paralan family. That was news to Vanessa, and she wondered how he knew. Cody believed his presence made his father seem underestimated, giving them an advantage. Then, suddenly, he asked Vanessa to support him when his father came in. Oscar entered and asked Cody to stay with Vanessa. He wouldn't return until the next evening and believed it was safer this way. Cody was devastated. He tried to bring up what his uncle had said, but Oscar insisted he needed to stay at home. As Oscar left, he asked Vanessa to watch his son closely. She took the chance to ask him to stay a little longer. Oscar, puzzled, agreed to listen. Cody looked at her hopefully, thinking she'd ask his father to take him, but instead, Vanessa only requested access to the security system. Cody's heart sank. He felt betrayed and abandoned. Oscar didn't have time to address it and promised they'd talk later. As he left, Cody remained with his nanny, now bitter at the world. Vanessa tried to cheer him up by suggesting dinner, but Cody refused and told her to leave. She tried to comfort him, but he shouted at her to get out. Left with no choice, Vanessa exited. He slammed the door behind her. She understood exactly how he felt once. She too had been left behind, watching her house burn. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. Again, she was overwhelmed by the feeling of being watched. She searched the entire room for cameras but found nothing. Still, the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave her. Despite the unease, it was time to resume her duties. Glancing at her immaculate room, she couldn't shake the suspicion that something sinister was lurking behind its perfection. Vanessa stepped onto the balcony, drawn by the gentle glow of the rising sun. She lingered there for a few minutes, watching the city bathe in light. Returning inside, she sat down and opened her laptop, but before she could do anything, she realized Cody was already perched on her bed. She invited him to breakfast. He refused again. Vanessa offered to take him to the park after eating, but Cody dismissed her disgusting food and said he wasn't going anywhere. Still, his interest was piqued at the mention of the park, and he asked her to tell him more about it. She described a nearby playground and mentioned a zoo, though she added it smelled a bit. At this, Cody confessed he liked the Plaza de Balboa the most. Vanessa didn't know where that was, so he explained it was in the center of the city, nestled between rivers, with trees, benches, and fountains. He and his father used to go there often and feed the ducks. Vanessa tried to picture Oscar in such a tranquil setting. It seemed almost out of character. Still, she agreed to take Cody on the condition that he eat breakfast. Eventually, the two of them found themselves in the plaza, Cody happily feeding ducks breadcrumbs and politely asking them not to fight. Of course, the ducks kept bickering, as ducks do. Vanessa watched him with quiet concern. She could tell how much he missed his father, who was gone all day. Once Cody had tired of feeding the ungrateful ducks, he tossed the rest of the bread into the fountain and turned to Vanessa. "Can I have ice cream?" he asked. She glanced at the time. It was nearing dinner. She hesitated. "It might spoil your appetite," she warned. "Please," Cody added, his eyes wide. "Dad always buys me ice cream." He looked so endearing that Vanessa couldn't resist. She gave in, just one scoop. She pointed to a nearby stand and suggested they go there, but Cody shook his head. My dad buys it in the old quarter, he said. They have pistachio. Though it was a detour, Vanessa agreed. They headed into the busy, tourist-filled old quarter. At the cellar-style ice cream shop, Vanessa ordered pistachio with chocolate chips. She addressed the vendor in French, and Cody's puzzled reaction reminded her she still had a lot to learn. The cone was ready. Vanessa pulled out her phone to pay. Cody stared longingly at the ice cream until suddenly he turned pale, startled, and bolted away as if being chased. Vanessa spun around, stunned. She barely caught a glimpse of him vanishing into the crowd before giving chase. He was gone around the corner in seconds. Why would he run now? He'd asked for this ice cream. Then it clicked, Cody wasn't running from something. He was running to something. At that very moment, Oscar was en route to a meeting. Deep in thought, he didn't notice much until his driver informed him of an incoming video call. From whom? Oscar asked. Your uncle, the driver said. Oscar groaned but agreed to take the call. He opened his laptop. Uncle Johnny's image appeared on the screen, looking unusually tense. Oscar braced himself for bad news, but Johnny merely asked how things were going. Oscar replied that one more group still needed to be coordinated. Johnny warned him not to start a war, he knew his nephew's temperament too well. The Mexicans were weapons experts, but clumsy with luxury goods. Their connections in Chinese retail would help. Satisfied, Johnny raised a toast to the family's expanding empire and reminded Oscar that it would all go to Cody someday. Oscar promised he wouldn't forget. Then Johnny asked about Cody. Oscar gave a vague update. Johnny toasted again, to our little mafioso. After the call ended, a blooded assistant entered Johnny's office and announced that everything was ready. While these plans unfolded, Cody was enacting one of his own. Having escaped Vanessa, he ran breathlessly through the streets, eventually reaching a bus stop. The driver didn't question the lone boy, Cody paid and boarded. Seated by the window, he spotted Vanessa running and ducked out of view. All he cared about now was seeing his father. Vanessa, meanwhile, treated the situation like a game of hide and seek. She ran through possible escape routes. Could Cody ride a bike? Probably not. A taxi or a bus seemed more likely. Closing her eyes, she imagined his thought process. She remembered how desperate he had been to wear a tie and accompany his father that morning. It was obvious now, Cody had made up his mind to go find Oscar. She overheard two girls talking about a boy in a cute outfit who had just boarded a bus. Vanessa gently interrupted, asking which bus. One girl hesitated, but the nanny's kind persistence worked. She said the boy had taken a bus heading to the intercity station. Vanessa sprang into action. She had 15 minutes. On the street, she spotted a man with a bike and a small dog in its front basket. Politely, she asked to borrow it. The man was taken aback, but agreed. Vanessa gently returned the dog, promised to leave the bike at a parking lot, and sped off. She raced through traffic, weaving between honking cars. Reaching a jammed bridge, she knew she'd be too late unless she got creative. Testing her park hour skills, Vanessa launched off the bridge, soaring over a baby stroller, and landed with a thud on the sidewalk. Pedestrians screamed, but she didn't stop. At the same time, Cody sat on the bus, getting closer. Bored, he stretched his legs and soon reached his stop. As he stepped off, he was startled to see Vanessa sitting calmly at the bench, waiting. He froze. How had she found him? She stood and bent down to his level. Where were you going all by yourself? She asked, voice firm but calm. Then she grabbed him gently by the collar and added, no more ice cream. Cody struggled to break free. You crumpled my suit, he cried. A wrinkled suit is the least of your problems, she replied. Still trying to escape, Cody shouted, let go. Vanessa shook his jacket lightly, and the boy slipped out of it. Landing on his heel, he winced in pain. But he didn't cry from the fall, he cried because he felt betrayed. "I hate you," he yelled at Vanessa, tears pouring down his face. "He didn't take me because of you." Vanessa crouched beside him, heartbreaking. "I'm sorry to hear that," she whispered. Cody curled into a ball, sobbing, blaming her for everything. She tried to explain that her job was to protect him, that it was dangerous to run off like this. "My dad's in danger too," Cody sobbed. "And I'm not there." Vanessa tried to calm him. "Your father has bodyguards. He's safe. They're all traitors," Cody shouted. Then the boy directly shouted that after what happened to his mother, his father simply could not trust any of them. Cody repeated Uncle Johnny's words, "Only family can be trusted," so he tried to protect his dad. Vanessa realized that in the boy's opinion, the bodyguards had deliberately allowed his mother to die. She tried to reassure him that the guards had done their best back then, but Cody objected, saying she didn't know anything. The girl didn't know the full truth about how Cody's mother was killed, but she understood the pain he was feeling. Still, Vanessa decided to try convincing him that he was wrong. Sitting down beside him, she sincerely admitted that she wasn't like those guards from before. She promised to protect Cody with all her strength, even if it meant saving him from himself. She explained that he could hate her or fight with her, but he wouldn't be able to escape her. The boy objected and confidently said he'd still try. Silence fell between them for a few moments as they looked at each other. Eventually, Cody gave in and returned home with her. After dinner, Vanessa began washing the dishes while Cody asked to go to his room. Naturally, she wanted to keep him close, even though he promised not to run away again. She didn't doubt his sincerity, but she still wasn't going to take her eyes off him until his father arrived. Later, she put the boy to bed and left the light on so it wasn't too bright. Cody hadn't fallen asleep yet, he wanted to wait for his father. Vanessa promised that as soon as she saw Oscar, she would tell him Cody wanted him. She left him wrapped in his blanket, nearly up to his head. Vanessa, too, was exhausted. She sat down right outside Cody's door, remembering that she hadn't slept in 2 nights. Her eyelids felt impossibly heavy, and she closed her eyes for just a moment to ease the fatigue. Before she realized it, she had fallen into a deep sleep. That was how Mr. Paralan found her, curled up under the door. Without waking her, he went straight to check on his son. Cody wasn't fully asleep yet. Hearing his father's presence, he muttered that he had missed him. Oscar leaned over him and asked about his day with the nanny. Cody admitted he had almost gotten rid of her and added that Vanessa was stupid and that he tried to run away to help his dad. When asked how he knew where Oscar was, Cody said that Adam always entered the GPS coordinates ahead of time. Oscar was impressed with his son's cleverness and also noted that Cody had overheard the guards talking. He was proud of how attentive his son was. Cody admitted that Vanessa caught him and didn't let him go on the road. Oscar said he had to leave again but promised that when Cody woke up, he'd see him there. After saying goodnight, Oscar quietly closed the door. He still had one task left: what to do with the sleeping nanny. First, he put back on the shirt he had removed earlier, which was covered in blood. He didn't want Cody to see him in that state. Then he looked at Vanessa again. Curled up and sleeping, she looked harmless, like a kitten. No matter what, his son was safe. He bent down and tried to wake her gently, whispering in her ear. Vanessa stirred and opened her eyes but didn't have the strength to move. She turned her head and realized Oscar had returned. Oscar helped her up, intending to walk her to her room so she could sleep properly. Vanessa didn't want him to fuss over her and said she could walk alone. He didn't argue, but as soon as he let go, she nearly fell. He caught her immediately and insisted on escorting her. Vanessa knew she was too weak, having gone days without sleep. Still, Oscar didn't scold her. He understood that Cody had just wanted to see him. Vanessa, in turn, said she had put a tracker in Cody's shoe. Oscar approved, finding the decision smart. Supporting the nearly sleeping girl, Oscar walked her to her room. Along the way, Vanessa caught a scent on his clothes and recognized the metallic tang of blood. She scrunched her nose at the smell. Oscar only grinned and said it wasn't as pleasant as oranges, was it? Vanessa pushed him away and tried to walk on her own, muttering that Cody should be kept away from all this. Oscar leaned in again and asked her not to shout if she valued her life. Vanessa was surprised, she hadn't realized her voice was raised. Fatigue had dulled her senses. The boss didn't want to argue. He just told her to get some sleep. But Vanessa admitted she couldn't sleep in this house. Still, she was falling over from exhaustion and only dreamed of reaching her bed. She tried to explain that someone was constantly watching her, but the next thing she knew, she was lying on the bed and unable to speak. Only one thought circled in her fading mind: she had to sleep. Mr. Paralan was surprised Vanessa had sensed she was being watched. He admired her intuition. She'd need it. He knew she still had much to do, but for now, he left her to rest. The next morning, Vanessa was relieved to have finally gotten some sleep. She felt less tired, though the memory of Oscar carrying her to bed embarrassed her. What puzzled her more was how quiet her internal alarms had gone. Oscar was the man she should be most afraid of, and yet, in that moment, she hadn't felt scared. After spending time in the house, Vanessa was starting to see the family differently. Cody didn't seem like a victim, and Oscar, despite being a mafia member, didn't come across as a villain. She knew he wanted to protect his son, but bringing him to Chicago, such a dangerous place, felt contradictory. Thinking through it all, she felt something wasn't adding up. Then she remembered the moment Oscar woke her at Cody's door. That memory stirred something in her, an emotion she wasn't supposed to have. The Academy's rules were clear: no emotional attachment. There was no time for distractions. Vanessa reminded herself she had work to do and planned to request full access to Oscar's systems. She also vowed to harden her heart against these people. Just as she resolved to keep her distance, Cody came rushing at her in an inflatable duck, nearly knocking her over. He zoomed past her, bumping into corners, not even slowing down. Vanessa shouted after him, trying to get him to stop. She chased him into the courtyard and found a large pool surrounded by sun loungers. There, reclining under the sun, was Mr. Paralan. Vanessa paused at the sight of him. His lean, muscular figure and relaxed demeanor caught her off guard. Oscar explained that today was their pool day, nothing else was happening. After what had happened the night before, he needed a break. He told her how, in the middle of the night, he had spotted a suspicious car near the gate again. It was the third time that week. Oscar had drawn a map, tracking every incident, and slowly a clearer picture was forming. After glancing at the map again, he laughed, thinking maybe he was overdoing it. Still, he went to reassure his son, who wanted to spend more time with him. Oscar promised Cody they would relax together tomorrow. As they lounged by the pool, Vanessa still didn't understand why today of all days had been chosen. After all, the pool was always there. She watched as Cody launched himself into the water with a cannonball, sending splashes everywhere. Vanessa was almost soaked. Seizing the chance, she asked Oscar again for system access. She wanted to begin vulnerability analysis and draft recommendations. But Oscar just grinned and said she didn't understand anything. He leaned in closer and repeated, "Today is pool day. No work." Then he stepped into the water himself. Vanessa still couldn't see what this had to do with her. She wasn't part of their family. Just then, Adam appeared, realizing this was Vanessa's first time seeing such an event. She asked if it was on the schedule, but he explained that pool days were completely random. He handed her a towel, saying he brought it just for her and that she should join in. Her uniform, he said, would be too hot, she ought to change. Vanessa turned back to Oscar, feeling she couldn't just sit quietly near him. She explained to Adam that she had a lot of work. But the driver leaned in and told her that once someone crossed into the pool area on a pool day, they didn't just go back. Vanessa didn't understand the strange rule, but that was the whole point of pool day. Adam continued explaining that Oscar and Cody would eat and even sleep by the pool. Just then, Mrs. Kenneth appeared, assuming Vanessa had agreed to join without ever stepping over the threshold of the pool area. She tossed a neatly folded set of swimwear toward Vanessa with a triumphant smile and said, "I took the liberty of choosing your size. You'll feel much more comfortable in this." Vanessa caught the bundle reflexively and blinked, unsure whether she should be impressed or alarmed at how precisely everyone seemed to anticipate her involvement in the day's bizarre ritual. She looked around. Oscar was already back in the pool, swimming slow, powerful laps, while Cody floated nearby on an inflatable crocodile, shouting for his father to watch his tricks. With no other choice and all exits blocked by expectation, Vanessa sighed and retreated to the changing area. Inside, she stared at the swimsuit, practical, dark blue, modest by all means. Someone had clearly done their homework. She muttered to herself, "You have got to be kidding me," then started changing. After a while, standing in her swimsuit, Vanessa realized that her plans to get answers that day had failed, so she decided to try to get along with Cody instead, hoping he would not be so alien to her. Approaching the water, she saw the boy holding 3 rings in his hands and invited her to play again. Oscar, meanwhile, sipping coffee, watched with interest the actions of his son and his nanny. Vanessa was ready to jump into the water and decided to do it with a little effect. The next moment she cut through the air with her hands and rapidly descended into the water. Paralan watched with curiosity as the girl made her jump head down. A few seconds later, after the nanny disappeared underwater, she emerged holding a ring in her hand. Cody immediately asked if his father had seen it, and Oscar nodded affirmatively. Then the boy told the nanny that he would be able to get the next ring first. The next moment they were both underwater, each trying to reach the ring as quickly as possible. When they surfaced, the boy noticed that he was definitely missing something while underwater, carried away by the capture of the ring. The nanny managed to pull the duck circle from him and even teased him in a childish way, trying to play, but this only made the boy angry. Still, she did not separate him from the duck and soon joined the owner to sunbathe on a sunlounger. Oscar noticed that they were having fun. Vanessa noticed that the boy had quite a lot of energy, and while the adults were resting, Cody continued to splash in the water, not wanting to get out at all. Then Oscar remembered how recently the girl was very eager to gain access to his security system. This seemed a little suspicious to him because he decided the nanny had ulterior motives to get closer to him. From such words, Vanessa even stopped chewing her sandwich because the boss himself promised to give her full access. After listening to the girl, Oscar sprawled on a chaise lounge like a model and asked if such full access was enough for her. It was definitely a joke on his part, but Vanessa, who knew him to be serious, couldn't believe he was joking. For a moment, she even thought that her boss had been replaced and now a completely different person was sitting in front of her. Adam, the driver, reappeared on the doorstep and asked the boss to talk to him. The driver never bothered Oscar just like that, and he immediately got up to find out what had happened. Vanessa thought that after all the turmoil, Mr. Paralan would just leave, and so did Cody. Adam briefly explained the matter and advised that the boss needed to see it himself, but Oscar could not leave because it was pool day. Then he heard the words of his son, who also advised him to go. Mr. Paralan was even a little glad that his son understood him and was not angry, so he agreed. Before leaving, he turned to Vanessa and asked her to look after the boy. Then he disappeared behind the doors. The girl noticed that her boss looked a little frightened. Vanessa was well aware that something had happened and something was not good, but she didn't know what it was. Presently, Mr. Paralan, following the driver, headed toward one section of the fence near the gate. At the same time, he questioned Adam if he had time to see the license plate of the car which again stopped at his house. The driver admitted that at the moment he was in the kitchen but was sure those people had been watching for a long time. When Oscar reached the place, he saw a gutted teddy bear covered in blood hanging on the bars of the fence. He asked Adam to check for explosives or surveillance devices and to dispose of the toy later. Meanwhile, Vanessa noticed that the boy was still sad and suggested they dive for the rings again. Cody got tired of the game, so the nanny offered to come up with some new entertainment. Vanessa decided to guess his favorite things, and if she made a mistake, Cody could push her into the water. Although the game seemed silly to the boy, the girl decided to play anyway and offered to start with his favorite animal. Cody stared questioningly, and the nanny made a thoughtful look before guessing the giraffe, but it wasn't the animal Cody liked. He playfully pushed the babysitter into the pool. It seemed the boy was beginning to like the game, and he offered to guess his favorite food next. The girl was sure she knew this because she was his nanny after all and couldn't help but know. After going through all the dishes the boy ate with appetite, she guessed asparagus, but this time Vanessa was wrong. Cody pushed her into the water again, this time with even more enthusiasm. The girl somersaulted into the pool while pretending to be significantly hit by the boy's push. This made Cody laugh even more, and he no longer tried to hide his childish laughter. Then he confessed to the nanny that she was not as bad as he had thought before. The girl noticed Mr. Paralan behind him and realized he had not returned to continue bathing. Noticing the babysitter's gaze, Cody also turned around and was very glad his father had returned, but he still needed Vanessa. Mr. Paralan offered to call Adam to his son if he wanted to continue swimming. The girl was quick to get out of the water, especially since she was interested herself. She immediately asked the boss what had happened, but he did not want to talk about it in front of his son. Taking a towel from his neck, he threw it in the nurse's face and ordered her to come to his office in 10 minutes, dry. Given how much time she had, Vanessa knew she wouldn't have time to go to her room to get ready. Cody shared with the babysitter that Adam wouldn't agree to swim with him because he didn't like to wet his hair. The girl found this interesting and had a few thoughts flashing through her head. Then she leaned over to the boy and asked him to tell her his favorite food. Although he did not understand why she needed it, Vanessa smiled sweetly and explained she was going to cook dinner and wanted to pamper the little one with a treat. Cody admitted he really liked a frozen dessert similar to ice cream but also containing berries and nuts. The girl realized that this kid had beaten her but promised to get him the dish. He ran to change clothes, satisfied. 10 minutes later, Vanessa was knocking on the chief's office door, and he loudly invited her in. Mr. Paralan was sitting at his desk, looking at something on his laptop with a very serious face. He asked the nanny to come over and look at one of the camera recordings made about an hour ago. The girl could not believe there were cameras on the mansion's territory because she had not seen any. Oscar explained the cameras were only outside, but she wasn't sure if he was telling the truth. However, now she had a chance to gain access to the system, although she did not imagine it that way. Looking at the video, the girl realized there had been an intrusion on the property. She saw a very creepy shot that scared her genuinely. On the monitor, a bloody teddy bear was clearly visible hanging on the fence. The nurse immediately determined this was nothing more than a threat, and Mr. Paralan fully agreed. The girl also suggested this was a threat to Cody, which was why she was there to protect him. Vanessa had no doubts about her abilities and was ready to deal with the situation. At the same time, she noticed the boy's toy was not on the fence, meaning those people did not get into the house. She offered to look at the rest of the cameras, assuming someone might still be exposed. After a while, they saw a muscular man on the laptop screen holding a bear in his hands. The nanny noticed something and asked the boss to zoom in on the villain's shoulder. Even at maximum zoom, the image was not very high quality, but the girl admitted she knew a suitable program. Oscar gave her a laptop, and she immediately got to work. Without noticing, a drop of water rolled off her hair onto Oscar's shirt. He thought the nanny hadn't dried her hair well enough. Vanessa did not pay attention to this. Almost a minute later, she had everything ready. She enlarged the image, and now it was possible to see the tattoo on the criminal's shoulder. The nanny knew such tattoos were done in Russian prisons after 2 terms of imprisonment. Oscar thought her knowledge incredible but found it incredible that he had made enemies in just a month. The girl suggested that the Dawn Mafia Paralan had some significant problems with the Russians. She also assumed her boss had broken into their territory without knowing it or that he had something they needed. When the nanny asked again what he had forgotten in Chicago, he explained he only made acquaintances and influenced people. Still, the girl was not joking. Mr. Paralan decided it was his turn to ask questions. He was very curious how the nanny could know so much about organized crime. He began to seriously question her about where she got such knowledge that went beyond her duties as a nanny. The girl stammered, realizing she had unwittingly revealed too much and now had to excuse herself. She began by saying she had done research before accepting the job offer, but Oscar did not believe it because no more than an hour had passed. Vanessa backed up her words by saying many things were already known to everyone and she had read about them. Mr. Paralan could not stand it anymore and banged his fist on the table because it concerned his field of activity. Then he asked the girl again, and she admitted they had been taught this in an elite academy. Oscar still did not believe the nanny and grew more suspicious every minute. Grabbing the frightened Vanessa by the shoulders, he demanded she tell the truth or he would kick her out. He added he would never allow his son to be protected by a deceiver. The girl understood this was a decisive moment and she had to say something to her boss. At the same time, Oscar must not find out she was investigating the murder of her parents. Mr. Paralan squeezed her shoulders even harder and gave her 5 seconds to answer. Vanessa thought she could put him on his shoulder blades right then, but it would end in defeat for herself. After all, she would be immediately fired and no longer able to find answers to her troubling questions. In a slightly trembling voice, she admitted to Oscar that she could get into big trouble later. He did not understand that Vanessa could be threatened more than he was and asked for an explanation. The nanny admitted there would be problems with the law, the academy, and everyone in general, and it would end badly for her. Mr. Paralan still did not believe the girl and assumed she was a member of some gang. Vanessa did not expect this and was even surprised her boss could think such a thing about her. He continued that the nanny was in a syndicate or worked for competitors and was now spying on him. Vanessa cried out in fright that she was just a freelancer. Oscar realized this girl was a mercenary. The girl determined her boss did not quite understand her. Trying not to laugh, she lowered her head. The nanny continued her story that she was a freelance hacker and sometimes did something illegal. She added that such people were called black hackers who really needed money. Then she said that despite all her actions, no one was hurt. At that moment Oscar recalled the day his son was kidnapped and how Vanessa had cleverly helped locate him. Vanessa began explaining that her work wasn't so difficult if you knew the right places to look. She made it clear she didn't directly involve herself with criminal groups, syndicates, or gangs, but rather gathered information through darknet forums, where details about criminal organizations were abundant. Oscar asked if Vanessa's headmistress knew about this, and she requested he not tell Barbara. Watching his expression, Vanessa realized he was beginning to trust her again. He promised secrecy, though his face held an intensity that made Vanessa uneasy, and rightly so. Immediately after, Mr. Paralan asked Vanessa to find someone for him. She hoped the task wouldn't be hard and asked who exactly he wanted. Without a word, Oscar handed her a laptop displaying the criminal's image. Vanessa needed a copy of the video footage to work effectively. Oscar gave her a tablet with all necessary files and told her he'd watch after his son himself. Leaving the office, Vanessa thought he trusted her too quickly, but she was willing to take any job he gave in exchange for his silence. The tablet was connected to his network, something not everyone would risk giving a hacker, and Vanessa suspected it was another test. She unlocked the device and noticed a program recording everything she did. She decided not to disappoint Oscar and prepared to perform the task, treating it as a performance more than a challenge. Meanwhile, in the south of the country, Johnny's trusted employee Simon nervously knocked on his boss's office door. Simon reported problems, but Johnny initially thought he was complaining about his outfit. He wasn't. Spitting out seed husks into a jar, Johnny listened as Simon explained that a mirroring program had detected unusual data activity. Johnny suspected Oscar had found their spyware. Though Johnny doubted Oscar's tech skills, Simon warned that the background programs on Oscar's tablet could reveal a lot. Johnny was not worried, he had trained his nephew well and believed Oscar would not interfere. He banged the jar lightly but remained calm, confident Oscar would not jeopardize him. Back with Vanessa, she began setting up a facial recognition scanner based on European Union standards, planning to expand it as needed. She was confident the mask worn by the villain wouldn't fool the system. Even hidden identities eventually show up on cameras. While the search ran, Vanessa checked on Cody. Almost immediately, a match was found. Surprised by the speed, she examined the results. The suspect was writhing in various poses on camera and had a Facebook account openly posting videos and photos. Vanessa found this bold and suspicious, so she dug deeper. Outside, Cody watched the street curiously, noticing Mrs. Kenneth cleaning with a rag. Adam grabbed Cody by the collar, warning him not to meddle where he shouldn't. The boy broke free and ran off, planning to investigate the duckling case further. Vanessa continued researching when she heard Oscar's voice. Turning, she saw him holding a plate of food. He explained she had missed dinner, but Vanessa was more concerned about Cody eating well. Oscar assured her Mrs. Kenneth was looking after his son. Then Vanessa showed Oscar the suspect photos. The villain's tattoo was missing in the latest pictures. Oscar was skeptical, but Vanessa insisted it was the same man. The tattoo was new and still healing, explaining its absence. The man's body structure matched perfectly. Vanessa proposed the man knew he'd be caught on camera, so he faked the tattoo or hid it. Oscar realized the man had deliberately provoked a gang conflict. Vanessa added that the suspect was born in Tijuana, linking him to the Mexican group Oscar had nearly finished negotiating with. Upset, Oscar now saw the man as a two-faced traitor. He asked Vanessa to track the suspect's location, which she did quickly. Oscar felt reassured he'd made the right decision hiring her. Vanessa admitted she only took the job because the headmistress insisted. When she questioned why Oscar chose her, he told her to figure it out herself. She noted he'd accused her of lying, despite knowing her capabilities. Oscar explained her resume only mentioned network security, not her hacking skills. Their conversation was interrupted by Cody, who stormed in demanding answers. Adults reassured him nothing was wrong, but Cody was unconvinced, visibly upset. He threw the duckling toy on the floor and asked why Adam wouldn't let him outside. He noticed Mrs. Kenneth cleaning the main gate and saw 2 guards at the back door instead of 1. Oscar explained Adam kept Cody safe, the second guard was training, and Mrs. Kenneth was just cleaning. Vanessa noted Oscar's tone about her wasn't kind, but Oscar took Cody in his arms, stating his duty was to protect his son above all. Oscar then asked Vanessa to confirm his words, recalling Barbara's warning that Vanessa must prioritize and protect Cody and obey her superior. Though reluctant, Vanessa confirmed everything. She knew she must protect Cody, even if it played into Oscar's hands. Alone, Vanessa returned to work, sitting at her laptop late into the night. When ready, she knocked softly on Oscar's door. He promptly opened and asked what she found. Vanessa reported that all locations where the suspect had been seen were unrelated to his house or legal business, which suited Oscar's plans. He was already plotting, marking locations on his investigation board. She wanted to coordinate drawing classes for Cody the next day, believing he had talent. Oscar agreed and sent Adam with them. Vanessa expected a train ride, but Oscar insisted on his way. Outside, Oscar noticed Vanessa's softened attitude toward him but didn't dwell on it, he needed her focused. The next morning, Vanessa was in the kitchen preparing apples when Oscar appeared, asking for coffee. Not finding Mrs. Kenneth, Vanessa offered to make it herself. While cooking, she shared news about Mexican weapons caches lost overnight. Oscar smiled mysteriously, suggesting Vanessa might not find such news interesting, but quickly reassured her he had no involvement and lacked resources for such operations. Vanessa doubted but listened as Oscar confessed he had contacts with grandmother Ivanova, a powerful figure managing organizations in Western Europe. This surprised Vanessa, knowing the reach Ivanova had. Oscar also told Vanessa that Russians were very sensitive about their tattoos. After coffee, Oscar left for his drawing classes with Cody. Vanessa pondered the man's extensive connections. At the class, Cody was reluctant, preferring to draw at home. Vanessa insisted he try to make new friends. Cody doubted kindness in the world, but Vanessa encouraged politeness. Other kids admired Cody's costume and guessed Vanessa was British and sent on purpose. Cody proudly explained his costume preserved the Paralan family's honor. Another boy, Clark, defended Cody and gave him an apron. Cody thought Clark's father was a sailor, but Clark corrected him. His dad was a dentist and one of the best. Clark smiled, proudly showing he brushed his teeth well. The teacher invited kids to draw something for their parents. After class, Vanessa checked on Cody, who grumbled he had to return next week. He suspected Clark was colorblind and needed training to work with shadows. In the car, Adam asked Cody what he had drawn. Cody hadn't drawn anything yet but hoped to create a masterpiece next week. Adam shared what he enjoyed most about painting, mosaics, encouraging the boy to explore. Vanessa smiled, watching Cody slowly open up amid the strange, tense world around them. Suddenly, the driver abruptly fell silent as he noticed something bad in the rearview mirror. Vanessa noticed this and began to ask what he had seen behind them. Without explaining much, Adam only asked the passengers to hold on tightly, then slammed on the gas, causing Vanessa and Cody to slam into the back of the seat. The girl asked Adam to explain, but he wanted to be sure of his suspicions first. The nanny then looked out the window at the car likely chasing them. The driver realized his sharp maneuver hadn't prevented the pursuers from following and began to think of his next move. He needed to get away at all costs and keep Cody safe. He made a few more maneuvers, but the dark car remained close. Vanessa was worried. Fortunately, there were few cars on the road. Adam, having increased speed, rushed along the highway. He planned to quickly drop off the passengers, then distract the pursuers himself. Cody wanted to know why they couldn't go with his dad, but Adam knew it was undesirable to bring those people to the mansion. Vanessa thought if shooting started, the boy might get caught in the crossfire. The nanny unbuckled her seatbelt and asked Cody to get ready. He realized she was going to jump out of the moving car, but she promised Adam would slow down. The driver turned sharply into an alley with a suitable place to drop them off. Without hesitation, Vanessa jumped out holding Cody tightly. She immediately hid behind a corner, hoping the chasing car wouldn't notice them. Soon, the car drove past without slowing. Cody breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they were safe. Vanessa peeked out to check. Cody tried to say something, but Vanessa quickly covered his mouth to keep him quiet. The dark car reappeared in the alley where they were hiding. Vanessa noticed it was another car searching for them. She feared the first car might see her jump out. The second car drove past without noticing them. Vanessa sighed with relief that they hadn't been found. She let go of Cody's mouth, and he asked who the cars belonged to. Vanessa didn't know, but guessed given the circumstances who might be chasing them. She took Cody by the hand and suggested they return home while she thought of a safe route. Meanwhile, Mr. Paralan was instructing the guards. Soon, he saw Vanessa and his son walking near the house. Cody rushed to his father, pushing Vanessa aside without a word. Oscar noticed the boy was scared and hugged him, asking if he was okay. Adam had contacted Oscar earlier and updated him. Oscar wanted to know what happened next. Vanessa told him there was a second car, but they escaped without problems. Cody, however, mentioned the neighbor's lawn had many garden gnomes, which he found terrible. Oscar realized that had scared the boy more than the chase. He sent Cody inside to change clothes. Vanessa approached Oscar, saying this time the threat was real because he had made enemies. She noticed Oscar seemed guilty but didn't admit it. Mr. Paralan decided to increase security. Vanessa planned to cancel the drawing classes. All she could do was minimize damage because what was done couldn't be undone. Cody returned, having forgotten to bring something for his father. He gave Oscar a drawing of his mother. Oscar noticed it was beautiful and very similar to his wife. Cody promised Vanessa he'd draw her next week. She wanted to explain he wouldn't have class, but Oscar put his hand on her shoulder, signaling her to stay silent. Oscar wanted to hang the drawing in his office. Cody went off to find a frame. When he left, Oscar told Vanessa not to cancel classes but to stay by his son's side. She didn't object, though she wanted the boy to be safe. Oscar prepared to make a call, dialing his uncle's number. The call surprised Johnny, but he knew Oscar needed help. Oscar asked him to send Nick and Anna, though they had agreed on minimal support. Oscar explained the city situation was heating up and he needed the two now. Johnny realized the clashes between Russians and Mexicans were escalating and hoped Oscar wasn't involved. Oscar assured him he stayed out of such matters but was concerned about group actions. Johnny offered a doctor, but Oscar had no job for her. He said the doctor would find something to do herself. Nick and Anna could only arrive next week. Johnny asked about little Cody's affairs before ending the call. Oscar thought his uncle knew about the pursuit and was already considering the Mexicans. A driver ran up, out of breath, reporting he had lost the pursuers. He told Oscar that Cody and Vanessa were safe at home. Oscar thanked the driver, who said he was just doing his job. Adam joked Vanessa should be thanked as a champion at jumping out of cars. The driver agreed Oscar was lucky to have her, wherever he found her. Oscar disagreed, trusting his inner voice. Looking at the house windows, Oscar noticed Vanessa standing there, watching in his direction. Late afternoon, Vanessa settled on the bed with the tablet. She found no files on Oscar's network older than a couple of months and no mention of a fire in his family. She understood data was periodically deleted. She saw no point in accessing the network but thought such an organization must store data somewhere else. Maybe not locally. Vanessa recalled the mirroring program and decided to try accessing data through it. She knew if data wasn't stored on the network, it was sent elsewhere. She began hacking again to trace where the data went. After hard work, Vanessa found a larger network with serious firewalls and fake IPs. Oscar did not have access. She decided to find who controlled it by preparing a small gift for the mysterious collectors. A week later, Vanessa took Cody to drawing class. She told him to behave, but he objected, confident he was great. Vanessa had noticed his self-confidence but hoped he wouldn't do anything foolish. Entering the classroom, Cody threw his apron at Clark, not wanting to stain his clothes. He noticed Clark wore a gardener's uniform and learned Clark's mother had picked it out. A mustachioed man entered with a brush and invited the children to introduce themselves. Another nanny asked Vanessa how long she had worked as a nanny. When she said 2 weeks, the other nanny, Olivia, was surprised, as Vanessa looked very professional. Olivia had worked for 8 months in the same family but the child still hated her. Olivia had to take the child to piano and tennis lessons, during which the child cried. The girl under Olivia's care refused homework, only ate yellow food, and called Olivia by the previous nanny's name. Vanessa realized Olivia was struggling. Vanessa had her own difficulties, such as running and hiding from pursuers, but tried to stay positive. Suddenly, the classroom window shattered. Shards flew and stuck in Vanessa's face, but she was more worried about Cody. She ran inside to see a man holding the baby threatening others with a gun. The children were terrified and cried. Vanessa prepared to stop the villain, but he ordered her to stay or the boy would suffer. She stopped and asked him to release Cody. The boy shouted to Vanessa as if warning her. Suddenly, a shot rang out, blood flowing on Vanessa's arm. Olivia had shot, aiming to remove Vanessa. Another shot followed, and Vanessa fell, unable to move. The man and boy fled. Cody shouted to Vanessa, thinking she was dead. Olivia caught the villain and suggested retreating through the back door to avoid the family driver. Vanessa regained consciousness, head spinning. Leaning on the wall, she tried to find Cody. Adam appeared, having heard the shots. He caught Vanessa as she nearly fell, asking where Cody was. Seeing Vanessa was shot, Adam began to stop the bleeding. Vanessa thought it was a scratch. She took out a phone showing a beacon indicating Cody's location underground near a river. The driver offered to send the location to Oscar immediately. Adam wrapped Vanessa's hand, but she insisted on rushing to find Cody now, asking Adam to catch up later. The driver urged her to wait, but she ran toward a nearby tunnel. Vanessa knew she could reach Cody faster on foot. At the tunnel, a rusty lock barred her way. She kicked it with all her strength. It broke on the first blow, and Vanessa fell inside. Almost there, she saw a boy tied with rope who shouted a warning. The man who took the boy appeared, waving a gun at Vanessa. She grabbed his arm and then his hand, pressing down to intercept the pistol. Now threatening the bandit with his own gun, she ordered him to stand still or die. Suddenly, Olivia's voice called out. Vanessa turned toward her. The bandit warned Vanessa not to do anything foolish or the child would be harmed. Vanessa asked who they were and what they wanted. Cody shouted they were a Mexican gang wanting revenge on his father, the best mafioso. Olivia revealed Oscar wanted to take over their businesses. The boy shouted they were just opening a shop and ordered the bandits to stay away. Then his father's voice was heard, praising the speech as excellent. Everyone immediately turned toward Oscar. He hadn't come alone. Nick and Anna stood beside him, ready to handle the situation themselves. Vanessa hadn't seen them yet and asked Mr. Paralan who they were. She noticed they looked like professionals who knew their business well. Anna lightly criticized that they had gotten into a mess on their first day and were prepared to fight. Nick noticed Cody, whom he considered his favorite little mafioso, and made a fuss in his direction. Mr. Paralan expressed how much he missed the two men, recalling their temper and habits. The villain began yelling that they should all go back south since the city was already occupied, but Oscar doubted this, saying they couldn't even save their weapon depots. Vanessa watched, noticing her boss trying to provoke the bandits. Olivia interjected, warning that although the gang was now on Oscar's side, they might change their minds later. Cody shouted defiantly that they would do as they wished and the bandit would see what happens to their enemies. Olivia tried to threaten the boy, but Vanessa immediately stood up, claiming she wouldn't do anything. She realized they didn't intend to kill her, otherwise, they would have done so as soon as she entered. Vanessa also realized this place was their main base. They hadn't expected to find her so quickly, and after losing many caches, it wasn't profitable to start shooting here, as the police could identify them immediately. Nick and Anna whispered how smart Vanessa was. Oscar had already told them about her. Olivia, still intolerant of their attitude, ordered Vanessa to be silent. Mr. Paralan decided to intervene, suggesting they not resort to guns and settle things like civilized mafiosi. Nick noticed they were outnumbered, 4 against 8, even with an injured nanny. Anna called it cowardice, but Olivia refused to be a fool and asked the others to lay down their arms first. Vanessa thought it best to comply, not wanting Cody to get hurt. Mr. Paralan holstered his pistol and put on the safety. The bandit who had stolen the baby was confident they could beat them with bare hands. Olivia ordered her men to attack immediately. Vanessa grabbed Cody and jumped aside, keeping him safe. The fight began mercilessly. Mr. Paralan and Anna fought skillfully, giving their opponents no chance. Nick also kept pace, skillfully defending against the bandits. One Mexican bandit approached Vanessa. Though wounded, she prepared to fight. As he neared, She struck him with her leg, knocking him down, then pressed him harder to the floor. Oscar and his assistant continued fighting the remaining bandits, who proved formidable. Vanessa decided it was safer to carry Cody away, putting him on her back. Before she could reach the exit, another bandit appeared, quickly handled by Nick. Before Vanessa could leave, the entire Mexican group lay immobilized on the ground. Cody jumped down and ran to his father, praising his quick action. Nick approached Vanessa, praising her fighting skills as a nanny. Anna said Vanessa reminded her of someone but couldn't recall who and wondered if Vanessa had been to Buffalo. Vanessa tried to answer but suddenly collapsed. Nick caught her just in time, realizing she had lost a lot of blood. Oscar ordered the bandits taken to the annex, leaving the assistants to handle it. He carried Vanessa to the car himself, insisting she rest after all she had done. When Vanessa next opened her eyes, she was in bed, her arm and head bandaged, and her body aching. Nick explained Anna had stitched her arm but was not a doctor. Vanessa didn't know who Anna was. Nick introduced her as his partner and himself as well. He knew from Oscar who Vanessa was, the hacker who caught bullets. Vanessa saw it as just a job, but Nick doubted they shared the same work. Nick visited to warn Vanessa she needed to rest at least a day. Vanessa worried about Cody, but he was now watching TV with his father. After Nick left, Vanessa realized Oscar had decided to increase security. He seemed well acquainted with their enemies. Though worried she had to stay in bed, Vanessa took her tablet to try again to find the full database through the mirroring program. She soon identified a network of devices, security cameras, personal computers, dozens of accounts, and located the main complex in the south. Curious where the data was stored, she considered the possibility of a deleted archive. Searching city of Albuquerque, she found the archive contained over 200 files about racing, jewelry, gambling, and deals spanning decades. Looking through this, Vanessa concluded her parents had been mafiosi, which displeased her. She guessed they were criminals involved in money laundering, casinos, horse racing, and black market jewelry. Their affairs eventually went awry, with sad consequences. Vanessa narrowed her search to find needed information faster, but suddenly the screen went dark and a warning appeared. Someone had disconnected her from the network. She didn't know who or why but suspected a hack. She decided to take Oscar's cybersecurity seriously. In Albuquerque, a young man surrounded by monitors noticed her hacking attempt. It was Simon, curious about what she sought and how she entered their system. Vanessa, having finished, asked Julia where Oscar's new people were. Julia said they were in the kitchen. Nick and Anna were discussing plans when Vanessa arrived. Anna was surprised Vanessa got up so early despite her injury. Vanessa thanked them, saying without their help Cody could have been seriously harmed. The nanny also thanked Anna for her support. Anna assured them they were there for that. Nick said they were deciding how to avoid similar incidents. Vanessa admitted it was a mistake to return to drawing classes since they could be tracked and an ambush expected. This saddened her, as she didn't want to be so predictable. Anna reassured her that Mr. Paralan himself had insisted on continuing studies. Nick added that with them there, Vanessa no longer needed to cover for him. Vanessa asked how long Nick and Anna had worked for Mr. Paralan. Anna said they had been with him even before he became the Dawn's right-hand man. Nick added Oscar had made them his representatives before sending them to Chicago. Vanessa was surprised Oscar had become a deputy only a year ago. She remembered his wife disappeared around that time and he was immediately appointed deputy. She found it strange, but Anna warned her not to tell anyone. Vanessa noticed something in the closet, a slightly open door. She changed the subject and apologized for her odd suspicion, admitting she needed to cook boiled eggplant for Cody's breakfast. From the closet, children's voices protested the dish. Vanessa opened the wardrobe door abruptly, greeting the boy. Cody sat among the dishes, realizing his spying had been discovered. He fell out of the closet, and Anna said it was time to get back to work. Nick smirked at Cody before leaving, joking he was unlucky this time. When alone with Cody, Vanessa explained eavesdropping was rude, but the boy claimed he already knew their conversation, which surprised her. Cody revealed that last year, bad men took his mother, and his father became a deputy to become stronger and find her. Both missed Mrs. Paralan. Oscar didn't trust the police and all his searches failed, which hurt him deeply. Cody said his father and men only returned her ring, and he cried. Vanessa comforted him, telling him crying would help. Cody insisted he was a man and men shouldn't cry, wiping his tears and pulling himself together. Mr. Paralan told his son that they wanted to take him next, but Vanessa promised it wouldn't happen. Cody doubted this because Vanessa didn't know the bad men or how to stop them. Bad things happened often. Cody decided he needed to be even worse than those bad men. Vanessa was shocked by the boy's reasoning, realizing how hard his life was. Cody hoped one day to become the Dawn's right-hand man, find those who took his mother, and ensure no one else's mother would be taken again. Vanessa recalled a night when Mr. Paralan mentioned a purpose for Cody but didn't finish the conversation. She now tried to guess what he meant, aware it would be harder than imagined. In Albuquerque, Simon noticed the system hack and thought how to fix it. He went to the doctor's room and knocked, hoping she was home. Wanda opened and asked why he came. Simon needed to see the boss, assuming she might be with the doctor. She invited him in, but he declined to avoid seeing the sight that could disturb him. Johnny appeared and asked why Simon had taken a break. Simon reported someone broke into their encrypted servers and it seemed an inside job. The boss noted Simon's job was to prevent such breaches. Simon said he cut off the network immediately. He explained their network was impenetrable but they still received data from the files. He noticed the package from Chicago was larger than usual. Simon guessed someone was trying to slip executable files. The boss asked him to keep things simple. Simon showed that Chicago branch programs updated faster than he could track. There were many security programs as if they were hiding something. Johnny thought Oscar's return of his people was suspicious. The boss decided Oscar had relaxed and needed reminding he was being watched. Johnny began planning what to do about Oscar. Meanwhile, Mr. Paralan was talking to Anna in the study about upcoming business. She had a few friends in town and promised to ask around, hoping to find out something. At that moment, Oscar's phone vibrated in his pocket. Seeing the call was from his uncle, he politely asked Anna to leave him, since the call was important. Left alone, Oscar answered and immediately asked why his uncle was contacting him so soon. Without further ado, his uncle told him about a new task and said he would send instructions at the same hour. Oscar opened the message on his tablet but decided to refuse, saying it was not in his competence. Johnny assured him he was mistaken and that the right person was now in the north of the country. The uncle was sure this case was for Oscar and asked why he was strengthening his security. Johnny suggested Oscar might be setting up a new base, but Oscar objected, saying he didn't need Nick and Anna for that. The uncle directly pointed out that someone had upgraded Oscar's internal network without permission. He also hinted Oscar was trying to rummage through his data and realized Vanessa was involved. But Oscar explained he had a new specialist who probably overdid it a little but that he would settle everything. Johnny reminded Oscar he could not hide from him and made the new task a priority. The next day, Cody was a little bored since his father ordered him to stay home until the babysitter got better. Vanessa did not want him to be bored and offered to play a game other than swimming. Cody asked what games she meant, and Vanessa listed a few, including hide-and-seek and charades. But the boy found all of them dumb and uninteresting and buried his face in the back of the sofa again. Suddenly, he jumped up happily and exclaimed he had figured out what to play: spies. Vanessa guessed he wanted to spy on his father, but Cody pointed to the guards in the garden. They were building something, but he was sure they were up to something else. He led Vanessa to the window. Several workers were running around with boards and shovels. Nothing seemed suspicious. But Cody was sure he was right and hoped Vanessa wanted to find out too. Vanessa agreed, and Cody was happy. Then he added they would need ninja masks to play. Soon, they hid down the corridor with balaclavas on their heads, trying to step quietly and unnoticed. Mrs. Kenneth passed them and promised no one would find their bodies if she found they had been in her room. Vanessa and Cody crept up to the window, and Cody saw a pile of wood, as if people were building something. Vanessa looked at the initial structure and suggested it might be a shed for garden tools. But there was a separate room in the garage for inventory. Now Cody thought deeply about why he needed the shed. Vanessa also thought it unnecessary to take a team of guards to build it. Then Anna appeared behind them in a swimsuit and invited Cody to swim. He happily rushed to change. Vanessa noticed Anna's questioning look and tried to explain she was just playing with Cody. Anna advised her not to get involved or ask unnecessary questions. Anna notified Vanessa that Oscar wanted to see her and said she would look after Cody for now. Vanessa decided not to keep Mr. Paralan waiting and soon knocked on his office door. He opened it immediately and invited her in, but seemed too polite. Oscar asked how her shoulder was. She said it was fine and the bullet hadn't hit the bone. He thanked her for keeping her promise to protect Cody even at the cost of her life. Vanessa said she acted instinctively, because Cody was just a child. Vanessa realized the conversation was becoming domestic and asked what Oscar wanted. He asked her to find another person for him, stressing its importance. Vanessa assumed a new threat had arisen and looked through the window at Cody in the pool. But Oscar didn't mean his son. He handed Vanessa a photo of a man who looked somewhat like Oscar. It was his cousin, whom Oscar believed was in danger. He added the case had nothing to do with Cody now. He asked Vanessa for a favor. Although she had promised herself not to help unless it involved Cody, seeing the worry on Oscar's face, she agreed but said it would be a one-time help. Oscar thanked her politely. Later, Vanessa studied with Cody again, this time conducting chemical experiments creating a volcano. The boy wondered why it exploded. Vanessa explained it was the right combination of reagents. Cody remarked it reminded him of Nick and Anna, who he thought were quite explosive. Nick came in with Oscar and added he could be dangerous without his partner. Oscar was about to leave but needed to talk to Vanessa first. She understood, took off her rubber gloves, and handed Oscar a small piece of paper with the information he needed. She added the man was now in St. Louis. Oscar thanked her and ordered Nick to prepare to leave in 10 minutes. He leaned over to his son and promised that when he woke up in the morning, he would see his father returning. Cody asked what was wrong in St. Louis, but his father said nothing special, only asked him not to blow up the house. Cody joked that it was the kitchen, but Mrs. Kenneth should be consulted. His father asked him not to go to the garden while construction was underway. Vanessa looked out the window and saw the shed looked completed outside but work was still underway inside. She saw a lot of earth being removed and suggested it might be a deep foundation. She realized she was unlikely to understand what was happening in the house at all. Then she noticed Cody was about to drop the reagent into the volcano and shouted for him to put on his goggles. Late in the evening, Mr. Paralan's car reached St. Louis and soon arrived at the right place. Nick assumed the man must be there if his routine was correct. Oscar was sure, but Nick asked him to be careful, still unsure about Vanessa. Soon the car they awaited drove into the parking lot. Adam turned to Oscar confidently and said this was the right person. He asked if further action was needed, but Oscar calmly ordered the driver to open the trunk and prepared himself. Half a minute later, Oscar met Richard, his cousin, who was surprised, not understanding how he was found. Oscar explained he could never hide from his family and, with Nick, captured him. Richard begged to be let go and claimed he wanted nothing to do with the Paralans. Oscar ignored him and stuffed him into the trunk, though Richard said it was not too late to release him. Oscar couldn't, he was only following orders. Leaning over the closed trunk, Oscar wondered if he was doing the right thing with his relative. His thoughts were interrupted by Nick, who urged him to hurry before someone noticed. Oscar stood over the trunk, thinking about what would happen next. He agreed it was time to go but did not want to break the promise he made to his son. A few hours later, Mr. Paralan's car returned to his mansion. Vanessa was still awake at her laptop and heard a car pull up. Looking out, she noticed the driver did not drop Oscar at the main entrance as usual. Adam and Nick had already taken Richard, kicking and wrapped in a blanket, out of the trunk to hide him. It was quite dark, and Vanessa could only see the bundle being taken to the barn. The driver found it strange that Oscar would keep the kidnapped man in his backyard. Vanessa tried to see what they were doing so late, thinking they were just working. Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder and shuddered in surprise. Reflexively, she turned sharply, grabbed the hand, and twisted it. She saw Oscar standing before her, whom she unexpectedly called by his first name. She apologized immediately. Oscar interrogated what she was doing there. She explained she heard a suspicious noise and decided to check. Oscar said the only suspicious thing here was her. Then his tone softened, assuming she was just awake for some reason. Vanessa apologized and asked to go back to bed. She understood she could get under Oscar's hot hand, but he let her go and wished her good night. Locking herself in her room, she propped the door with her back, a little out of breath from how close Oscar had come. Then she calmed down and lay down, remembering his wish to sleep peacefully. Still, even if she wanted to, she knew she couldn't sleep until she understood what was going on. The next morning, Vanessa visited Cody's room and tidied it up, gathering art supplies. With the box, she went to find Cody to offer drawing again. In the corridor, Vanessa met a girl she didn't know who looked uncomfortable with a bandaged arm. She offered help and admitted she had come to visit a patient. Vanessa thought the doctor was there because of her hand, though Oscar hadn't told her anything. Wanda chuckled, saying Vanessa misunderstood and she was going to another patient. She looked at Vanessa with something frightening and warning in her eyes. Vanessa decided to inform her employer about the visitor before letting her in. Then Anna appeared, as if waiting for a guest, and said she would handle the issue herself. The girls greeted each other. Vanessa realized they knew each other well. Anna asked Vanessa to check on Cody, assuring her all was under control. Meanwhile, Mr. Paralan was in his office, looking at a prepared syringe. The door opened, and Nick told him the long-awaited guest had arrived and was waiting. Oscar was pleased and decided it was time to proceed. Anna led the guests across the house to get the barn key from the master. Approaching the door, a group member knocked and said the doctor had arrived in a nearby room. Vanessa heard someone in the hallway trying to reach her boss. She cautiously looked out and saw Anna and her guest. Noticing Vanessa's behavior, Cody asked what was going on. Vanessa didn't let him go outside. After closing the door, the boy grew curious why Anna couldn't get into his father's office. Vanessa realized they were up to something. Cody tried to rush out again, but Vanessa stopped him, fearing trouble. She remembered Anna's words, advising her to stay away from this. To distract Cody, Vanessa offered to make a beautiful card for his dad's birthday tomorrow. Anna failed to reach Oscar, who had gone to the barn and asked Nick to signal if anyone appeared. Nick wanted to help but Oscar refused, knowing even he couldn't protect him from himself. Inside, Oscar found himself in a semi-dark room with a single door hiding another section of the shed underground, like a hiding place. Oscar went downstairs, turning on a single lamp. There sat Roger, tied up, mouth taped shut. Seeing Oscar, Roger tried to speak but only muffled sounds came out. Oscar didn't want to hear anything. He approached and asked for forgiveness for how things turned out. He told Roger no one could escape now, not even family. He leaned to Roger's ear and said he should be grateful for what was coming. Roger had to pay because he had no family to punish for his mistakes. Oscar prepared a syringe. At that moment, Nick shouted to the doctor upstairs that she was waiting downstairs. Oscar wasted no time, plunged the needle into Roger's neck, and pressed the piston. Roger could no longer resist and accepted his fate. At that moment, the feet of the descending doctor appeared on the steps, but Oscar had already finished his work and hid the syringe in his pocket. Wanda entered, assuming Mr. Paralan was already anticipating the future actions she was going to take on the prisoner. She covered her hair with a handkerchief to avoid staining it with blood and prepared for the work ahead. She laid out a whole set of torture tools, her working instruments, but Oscar did not want to see any of it and hurried away, explaining he did not want to interfere. Having prepared special wire cutters, Wanda approached the prisoner and almost whispered to him to sing her the right song. The next moment, Roger's muffled scream came from the secret compartment in the shed. Oscar was rather unhappy to hear it. Going outside, he continued to wonder if he had done the right thing but hoped the injection would work as it should. Nick and Anna were waiting for him near the barn. They advised the boss to keep the mansion workers away from all this, but Mr. Paralan assured them the doctor would deal with everything quickly. They thought he was hoping in vain. However, Anna noticed the expression on Oscar's face and began to understand that he had already managed to do something to the prisoner. At that same moment, Wanda jumped out of the barn, furious and not understanding why things had gone wrong for her. She shouted that Roger did not last even 3 minutes and began interrogating Oscar about what he had given him. Mr. Paralan only said goodbye to Wanda in response and asked her to say hello to his uncle. The doctor had no choice but to prepare for the journey. Although her anger did not abate, she promised she would definitely tell Johnny that Oscar was a slob. Meanwhile, Vanessa looked out the window at what was happening while Cody drew and gave new ideas for his masterpiece. Vanessa soon noticed the doctor had not stayed in the shed for long and was leaving the mansion in a gloomy mood. But this was not all that puzzled the nanny. On Wanda's robe, she also saw a considerable number of bloodstains. Vanessa began to suspect that something bad had happened in the barn but decided not to devote herself to it this time. Still, curiosity overwhelmed her. Left alone in her room that evening, she decided to look at the tablet, realizing this could lead to trouble. Vanessa checked the cameras, beginning from the moment Mr. Paralan's car returned to the estate the day before. The black and white footage showed Adam and Nick dragging around something not like. Looking closer, Vanessa was horrified to realize it was a body wrapped in a blanket. It was late and dark in the garden, so she couldn't make out what was going on next, but she knew the cameras were multispectral, which she hoped would help. Switching to the infrared mode, Vanessa saw 2 men dragging a living person. Then she came to the terrible realization that the man was still alive at that time and now his fate was unknown. She remembered the doctor had left after lunch, and that night, they could again be carrying the body. Vanessa found a video recording showing that about an hour ago, Adam and Nick were carrying a huge package. However, this time, the sensor showed only 2 heat signatures indicating the sad outcome of events. Vanessa was horrified that her boss could do such things. Now she saw him as more than just an employer. At the same time, she was well aware these 3 were hardened criminals, and killing a person for them was like husking sunflower seeds. These conflicting thoughts battled in her mind. She tried to believe in a better option. Then she remembered she had recently given Mr. Paralan information about his cousin. After a while, they returned to the mansion with a living person and later took away a corpse. Vanessa now clearly realized these people had killed Roger, the man she herself had led them to. The girl was overcome by remorse and fear that she had helped commit a crime. The next day, Vanessa began to consider breaking her contract and quitting her job, but she did not know how she would face Barbara, who pinned all her hopes on her and loved her dearly. However, she also could not stay in this house. Taking out her phone, she dialed the number of the headmistress of the Nanny Academy. Barbara's voice answered immediately. Realizing from Vanessa's stammering that something was wrong, Barbara offered to send another nanny to the mansion. Vanessa objected, wondering what would happen if she terminated the contract early, hoping no replacement would be sent. Barbara explained that if their agent did not find a suitable reason, it would be extremely difficult to reach a compromise with the employer. At the same time, she understood Vanessa's feelings and wanted to help. She also said that if Vanessa wanted to return home, no arrangements would prevent her. Vanessa hoped she could separate work and personal life but found it too difficult. Barbara at first thought she was in danger for the child, but Vanessa clarified she meant she was doing things that made her job less safe. The headmistress suggested she would speak to the employer herself to try to eliminate the obstacles to Vanessa's work. Vanessa was frightened by the idea and begged Barbara not to do anything like that. Barbara listened and asked Vanessa to think carefully and inform her of her decision. She promised to accept whatever Vanessa chose and added that everyone at the academy missed her. After the call, Vanessa went to the kitchen, where Mrs. Kenneth was giving instructions to Julia. Noticing Vanessa looked like a ghost, Mrs. Kenneth told her to pull herself together and not be discouraged. Mrs. Kenneth explained that all the preparations were for the birthday, as family members from all over the world would gather. Vanessa offered to help, but Mrs. Kenneth only asked her to keep the boy away and advised her to do something about the bags under her eyes so people wouldn't think she was overworked. Later, Vanessa was with Cody, who was drawing their dad wearing a hat. She suggested drawing a mustache as well. She asked what Cody expected from the holiday. He said everyone would come, even Vincent and Lisa. Vanessa realized it would not be just a holiday but a day when the house would be full of all kinds of criminals. She remembered the tragic night when a fire broke out in her home. The situation felt similar. Tormented by doubts, she had never found answers to her questions but still wanted to leave this house. Turning to Cody, she felt sadder because she promised to protect him but thought her presence might make things worse, and Oscar could use her affection for the boy. She believed the best option was to refuse the job. When Cody finished the portrait, Vanessa offered to read a book. Mrs. Kenneth came in to say it was time to change for dinner. Cody was glad to get to the table soon, but Vanessa asked him to bathe first. Mrs. Kenneth pushed Vanessa out, saying she would take care of Cody herself and Vanessa needed to prepare. Vanessa objected she had no elegant clothes, but the maid assured her everything was on her bed. Entering the room, Vanessa noticed the outfit, which seemed familiar. She remembered wearing the same dress on the tragic day her parents died. Then she pulled herself together, convincing herself it was just a dress and the holiday was ordinary. She only had to endure one night. The next day, she could be free. Downstairs, Vanessa noticed Nick moving a special device over the gifts. He said it wouldn't hurt to be careful, even if only family members were present, because that was precisely why. Nick explained each family member benefited from Oscar's death in their own way. Vanessa realized he was serious. She asked where Cody was and learned he was with his second cousins. Today, it was not her concern. The children would be looked after by other nannies who came with them. Vanessa did not understand why she was there. Nick said she was the secret guard, but her task was to have fun until dinner was served. At dinner, Vanessa was instructed to notice anything suspicious in the house full of mafiosi. Meanwhile, Don Johnny was talking to his nephew, saying the doctor was disappointed because she hadn't received anything. Oscar reminded him he didn't need her services. Johnny said he gave the orders, and only the nephew carried them out, grabbing Roger and waiting for the doctor's arrival. There was no discussion about the prisoner's condition. Johnny sighed heavily, demanding unconditional obedience, while his nephew tried to plot against him. The uncle menacingly hinted he might find a more effective way to motivate him. At this moment, a girl in a red dress appeared nearby, stepping out for fresh air. Johnny asked Oscar what new employee this was. Oscar called Vanessa and introduced her to Johnny Paralan, who had come to the party. Johnny was introduced as the head of the mafia, standing above everyone. Vanessa hesitated, not expecting to meet him so soon. She already knew every crime and terrible act in the arrive was traced back to him. She concluded Johnny must know everything that happened that night many years ago. She greeted him politely. Johnny asked where she had been trained, noting she looked too young for a nanny. Vanessa wanted to answer but noticed Oscar's look telling her to lie. She evasively said her uniqueness lay in undisclosed secrets of preparation. Johnny thought she was a little cocky but assumed her competence backed it. He knew how scrupulous Oscar was about his son's safety. Johnny called the waiter, demanding another martini with triple olives. Vanessa couldn't understand how he could smile after all he had done. She wanted to leave immediately, unable to look at him even for a second. She could still hear Johnny thinking she was a cheeky girl, different from everyone else. Vanessa felt she couldn't stay despite the contract and promise to the boy. Her intention was to leave, perhaps immediately. Then Nick suddenly appeared, startling her. She didn't want to see anyone. Nick informed her dinner had been served. Vanessa objected she was unwell, but he seemed indifferent and insisted she attend. No matter how hard she tried to excuse herself, Nick wouldn't let her go, reminding her it was the boss's order. Entering the building, Vanessa saw 3 children, including Cody. Strange children carefully examined their brother's beautiful nanny. Vanessa noticed Cody was acting like a good host and confirming he was showing good places. Cody looked very adult and confident. She remembered her own childhood when she had felt confident like that. Cody told Vanessa the kids would sit at the children's table, where she was not allowed. Vanessa was embarrassed, but Oscar's voice offered to take her there. She objected, saying it was his birthday, but he insisted and dragged her with him, even in front of others. Oscar confessed she had charmed his uncle but decided to keep silent about her past. Mr. Paralan did not want to be underestimated. He invited her to the table and pointed to her seat. Vanessa was surprised the boss invited her to the holiday. He leaned over and whispered she was now part of his family. She noticed he was skilled at phrasing every sentence as a threat. Looking at the guests, one more famous than the other, Vanessa saw the famous butcher and a madam she had read about. She realized each could be involved in her parents' death. A young man introduced himself as Kyle and was known as a Casanova. Vanessa politely introduced herself. Kyle said he was seeing her for the first time and assumed she worked for the birthday boy. She confirmed this. Kyle noticed she was tense and advised her to relax, saying no one cared about her. Then, squinting slightly, he said no one but Mr. Paralan himself cared. Vanessa glanced at Oscar, who was still watching her. Kyle said he couldn't understand Oscar's mood, whether interested, furious, or both. He admitted he and Oscar were second cousins, sharing a great-grandmother. Kyle was sorry Roger couldn't attend the party. Vanessa said it was none of her business, she was just doing her job. Surrounded by these people, Vanessa felt terrible and unable to bear it. She turned back to Oscar, confused why he didn't stop watching her. She assumed he was suspicious, thinking she might do something inappropriate. The last dish was served. Kyle invited her to join them in the library for dessert, but Vanessa refused. Kyle said he was pleased to meet her and added that many would soon move north, perhaps seeing each other more often. Vanessa said such news seemed wonderful and hurried out. In the hallway, she met Mrs. Kenneth, who asked her to take Cody to his room because he was tired. Vanessa gladly took the boy in her arms and went to his bedroom. Cody hadn't tasted the cake yet, but Vanessa assured him he could eat it for breakfast. She understood this would likely be the last morning beside him. Wishing the little one good night, she left the room. Thoughts raged in her head. Closing the door behind her, Vanessa leaned her hands against it and quietly said goodbye to the little tomboy. Immediately, she heard the boss's voice behind her, who knew this would happen. She turned sharply. But at that very moment, she did not know what Mr. Paralan would say in reply. He later added that she had been on pins and needles all evening, noticed not only by him but also by the others. Although he did not know what had happened, he advised the nanny to solve the problem because they could not show weakness. The girl cut in that there was none and admitted she was worried he had lied to her. Oscar wondered what exactly he had deceived her about. The girl took it as if he had lied more than once. Mr. Paralan repeated his question in a menacing tone, asking what exactly he had lied to her about. Vanessa blurted out that she knew what Oscar had done to his cousin, but immediately covered her mouth with her hand, horrified at how much she had revealed, even though she was going to quit anyway. Oscar didn't deny it, except for his first sentence. He assured that he had never really lied to her. The girl was outraged that her boss did not even try to help Roger, although he said he was in danger. But Oscar pointed out he never said he was going to help him, so there was no lie in his words. Then Vanessa accused him of using her, despite her not wanting to be involved in his business, and deceiving her to get help. Oscar replied he had no choice. He also reproached the nanny for lying when he gave her access to the network. She promised to check only the necessary files. She didn't understand what this had to do with what was happening. Mr. Paralan explained that when she started digging under them, she probably thought no one would notice. Vanessa thought Oscar himself had noticed, but it wasn't him. He admitted he was being watched. The man said his uncle did not trust anyone and everything he did was transferred to the main computer in Albuquerque. Then Vanessa realized the mirroring program wasn't watching her at all, it was her boss. Oscar explained that the girl's actions led to her uncle finding out about it and giving him a task to remind him what happens to traitors. Now Vanessa understood Oscar did not kill his cousin of his own free will. She realized she was to blame for everything, while her boss was also punished, and she had only reproached him. Oscar tried to calm her down but at the same time gave her a choice: either he would hide information from her or she would participate fully with him. Vanessa faced an even more difficult and frightening choice and didn't know how to answer. She didn't understand why she had to choose, but it was she who was digging into Oscar's family and accessing the system. She began apologizing to her boss, explaining she was just curious and did not know someone would die because of it. The girl was so upset she burst into tears. It was her fault a person was injured. Mr. Paralan added that sooner or later they would have come for Roger anyway. He assured her his cousin was lucky because, thanks to Oscar, he passed painlessly to the other world. Seeing the crying nanny, he regretted dragging her into all this. But the girl was still sure it was her fault. Oscar later praised her unsurpassed hacking skills and asked her to find his cousin. He knew any delay might have ended differently and his uncle might doubt his loyalty. The girl didn't understand why Oscar hadn't fired her immediately after she helped him save face. Everyone had their own secrets, and the fact that her boss didn't lie to her didn't mean he told her everything. At the same time, he entrusted her with protecting Cody. Mr. Paralan came closer, took her hands, and asked her to stay. He admitted he knew she was thinking of leaving and that it was all too much for her, but he wanted her to stay. Oscar added Vanessa was needed for the boy and for both of them. Though it seemed Cody was safe, the girl didn't understand why her boss was so confident he could convince her. She felt her opinion was changing, but then pushed him away, saying she needed to think, and rushed off. Oscar didn't follow, staying in the corridor, hoping she'd make the right decision. Vanessa locked herself in her room, trying to sort out her thoughts and understand what she was doing. Her head went blank when Oscar looked at her like that. She realized he was using her concern for Cody to his advantage. During this time, she remembered many sides of him: how angry he was, how he cared for her as she fell asleep on the floor, and how he gently woke her. She recalled the day at the pool and their fun together, but also the threatening things he whispered in her ear. She couldn't tell which personality was real and imagined what would happen if all sides came together. She also remembered the garden conversation when Oscar was about to reveal his goals for Cody. She remembered how the boy raged, explaining his father couldn't trust anyone after losing his wife. Oscar was concerned his uncle would doubt his loyalty. Vanessa felt Oscar had little under control and that he had chosen her for a different reason. She understood she didn't deserve his full trust and thought of him mostly negatively, but he was different. She caught herself breaking her rule not to get emotionally attached but didn't know how to avoid it. All this brought back painful memories. At that moment, she swore even the smell of smoke was real. Then she realized the cruel truth: the smoke was real and the house was likely on fire. Her first thought was to check on little Cody and if he was hurt. The fire raged outside her door, but that didn't stop her. She decided to save the boy, wondering if Oscar had escaped the flames. The fire spread quickly and nearly trapped her, blocking all possible paths. But she didn't give up. Covering her nose to inhale less smoke, she carried out her plan. Soon, she found the boy sitting frightened in his room. The fire hadn't reached him yet. She wrapped Cody in a blanket and explained there was a fire and they needed to get out immediately. Cody wanted to pick up his beloved duckling fallen in the far corner of the bed, but there was no time. With the boy in her arms, Vanessa raced down the hallway to the exit as fast as possible. Her path was blocked by a small collapse of boards, burned out and fallen, blocking the passage. She realized she couldn't get out via the stairs and had to find another way. In the distance, she saw a driver trying to call her and Cody through the smoke. She shouted that the boy was with her and they would try to escape through the window. Running past Oscar's burning room, Vanessa hoped he wasn't there when the fire started. They found a room not yet engulfed by flames but filled with smoke. She sat Cody down, who worried about his dad, realizing they were trapped. Vanessa leaned against the balcony door, which was jammed. After much effort, she pushed it open and stepped onto the balcony. She inspected how best to descend. Vanessa returned for the boy, who begged her to find his dad. She believed Oscar had escaped and told Cody the stairs were blocked, so they'd have to climb down ivy on the wall. Though sad, Cody understood and agreed. Vanessa lifted him onto her back, told him to hold tight, and prepared to descend. Climbing over the railing, she felt for places to rest her bare feet. Ivy spikes dug into her arms, legs, and face, but she didn't give up. The thick branches began to crack, and Vanessa realized the plant couldn't hold them both. Looking down, she saw bushes below and decided to jump. Turning the boy to face her, she prepared to leap. They flew through the air. Vanessa tried not to twist, so Cody wouldn't get hurt. The landing wasn't as soft as she'd hoped, but better than hitting the ground directly. The bushes sprung back slightly, and they rolled on the grass, Cody covering his head. Lying on the ground, Vanessa was glad she'd saved him. Cody tried to escape her embrace, anxious to find his father. He saw only fire and devastation around. He asked the nanny where his father was and why he wasn't there. They soon saw a crowd that had escaped the burning house, but Mr. Paralan was nowhere. They met the driver Adam, who was glad the boy and nanny escaped. Vanessa wondered if he'd seen Oscar. Adam thought the gentleman might have escaped through the back door. Vanessa questioned why the fire alarm hadn't sounded. Adam was sure it was all set up on purpose. Vanessa recalled the day from her childhood when the alarm also didn't sound. For a moment, she felt history was repeating and was sure the same person was behind both fires. Cody saw the window of his father's room, almost burned out, and worried more. Adam assured the boy his father wasn't there but was in the library. Julia raised the alarm. Vanessa didn't understand the servant's involvement. Adam said the maid was taking plates to the kitchen when she noticed the smoke. The flames spread fast. Cody cried. Vanessa assumed Oscar was with Nick and Anna since they were missing. She asked Cody to trust them, they did their job as well as she did hers. Mrs. Kenneth came to check the list to ensure everyone left. She was sure Oscar, his uncle, Nick, and Anna escaped through the back door. Vanessa overheard people wondering who the fire's target was. It was clear it was the family home, but the Don was also present, making access difficult. Someone suggested the arsonist could be any of them. Soon, fire engine sirens sounded. The driver opened the gate. Within a minute, firefighters began spraying powerful streams of water on the building. Kyle appeared near Vanessa. He lamented the magnificent house burning without thinking about those inside. Kyle boasted about spending much money on a gift Oscar wouldn't be able to open now. He said Oscar was 2 years younger, but his grey hair was deceiving. Cody thought his dad was blonde. Kyle chuckled, hinting Oscar wasn't honest. The boy was angry, about to yell, but then heard his father calling. Forgetting everything, Cody couldn't believe he heard his father's voice again and that he was alive. Oscar was with his men and uncle, now approaching the crowd. Cody immediately threw off his blanket and rushed toward his father as fast as he could, almost jumping. The next moment, Mr. Paralan was already hugging his son tightly and was glad the boy was all right. Vanessa then approached, but Oscar started yelling at her for not answering his calls. The girl didn't understand why he was so furious since her phone was left inside and she didn't have time to think about it. Kyle appeared like a shadow again, praising Vanessa's heroic deed of jumping from the second floor with the boy. Realizing he was wrong, Mr. Paralan immediately calmed down and agreed that Vanessa needed to rest. Vanessa said that next time she would call the special services first and not act instinctively. Oscar didn't quite understand what she meant by next time but decided not to question her further for now. After tonight, Vanessa was convinced she couldn't remain indifferent. She looked at the two who now seemed completely innocent and defenseless and understood they needed her help. She corrected herself, explaining that next time she would just try harder. Anna then approached, wanting to bandage a wound on Oscar's head. He did not remember how he escaped through the collapsing garage. Anna guessed he was still in blind panic and asked to be reminded why he was keeping her with Nick. Nick, who was nearby, jokingly replied it was to help him get out of burning buildings. Kyle noticed Oscar didn't trust the nanny much regarding his son's safety, but Vanessa assured him Oscar acted like any parent. Kyle suggested she move to his organization if she wanted to feel truly valuable. The girl thought Kyle had children, but he said no and had other interests. Kyle explained he always had a job for a lady who jumps out of windows. Then he left. Nick came up to Vanessa next, and she saw truth in his words. He noticed that even if she agreed to move to Kyle, she still wouldn't be able to leave. Vanessa assured him it wasn't necessary. Nick noticed her hesitation and asked her to leave immediately if she still had doubts. He noticed that even if she agreed to move to Kyle, she still wouldn't be able to leave. Vanessa assured him it wasn't necessary. Nick noticed her hesitation and asked her to leave immediately if she still had doubts. But Vanessa knew it was too late to back down, especially since she couldn't leave Cody with his father. Confidently, she repeated that she was staying and wasn't going to leave this family. Mrs. Kenneth overheard and decided everyone needed to put on gloves and search for anything that might have survived. She asked if anyone objected, but no one dared to challenge her. Vanessa tore a thin strip of fabric from her dress and tied her hair up in a bun so it wouldn't interfere with her work. Entering the charred building again, Vanessa realized almost nothing had survived. In Cody's room, she noticed the burned duckling he loved. She found nothing else and went to check her own room, hoping some belongings remained. The first thing she found was her preserved laptop case, for which she was grateful to the academy. Opening it, the The laptop seemed intact and should work, but there was no time to check. She now had only one set of uniforms and thought she needed to order more. Looking around, she felt she had gathered the most important things and was ready to leave. Still, she decided to check Mr. Paralan's room. Holding onto the wall carefully because the floorboards were badly burned with a huge hole, Vanessa made it across and noticed an iron safe that seemed undamaged. It struck her as strange that such an antiquity lay in a house full of new technology. Curious, Vanessa wondered what papers the Mafia might store in the safe. Whatever it was, they protected it well. Vanessa tried to open it, first with combinations based on Oscar's and Cody's birthdays, no luck. She tried Mr. Paralan's wife's birthday, still no success. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Anna entered the room, curious about what Vanessa was doing. Vanessa quickly explained she was checking if the safe had survived the fire. Anna said she would take care of it and knew the code because the boss had asked her to retrieve some things. Vanessa didn't want to disturb her and went to help on the first floor. As she left, Anna noticed something strange and familiar in Vanessa. Outside, Mr. Paralan asked Mrs. Kenneth what had been lost. She reported that almost everything was gone. Vanessa approached holding the charred duckling and expressed that they had lost someone else. Cody, seeing his favorite toy, immediately rushed to her, glad to hold it again. Then the boy became ashamed for being left in a burning house. Vanessa expressed regret but explained she first needed to save him. Cody knew that but didn't understand why others were suffering because of him. His father approached and promised they would hold a church service and find a new toy for him. Soon Nick and Anna reported they had salvaged everything possible from the house. Nick said the security system couldn't be restored, and it was impossible to review the previous night's footage. Anna added that all hard drives and electronics, even damaged ones, were destroyed. Vanessa realized they had destroyed all traces of illegal activity, but the most important things remained in the safe. The driver came up and reported all guests had been accommodated in a hotel for the night. Uncle Johnny decided to return home immediately. Nick asked what would happen to them. Oscar explained he had agreed on a long-term lease for several rooms in the Grand Hotel. Adam noticed there was a rooftop swimming pool, and from Cody's room window, he could see his favorite park. Vanessa, overhearing the conversation, was interested in the hotel stay but worried they might have to go to Albuquerque. Oscar assured them it would take more than a fire. Mr. Paralan admitted things had gone too far to turn back now. At that moment, Johnny was arriving home when his driver informed him of an incoming call. It was Simon, who politely asked how the event went. Don grinned slightly and added with irony that everything went with a twinkle. Johnny wondered if Simon had found the hacker Oscar had hired to breach their network. Simon believed Nick and Anna were unlikely candidates because they couldn't even pick a suitcase lock. The only unchecked employee was the nanny, who had started about a month ago. This intrigued the Don. Simon tried to dig up more information about her. While the mobsters minded their business, Oscar's family arrived at the Grand Central Hotel. They looked more like a horde of homeless people than serious mafiosi. The porter recognized Mr. Paralan and greeted him, offering services. Nick leaned over and explained his boss had a very hard night and would talk tomorrow. Anna came up to discuss accommodation terms with the porter. Meanwhile, Vanessa looked around the clean, simple hall. Behind her, Adam admired the chic surroundings, commenting they would live here for some time. They were distracted when Mrs. Kenneth handed out room key cards. She assigned Julia to maintain their rooms and handle laundry, as she didn't trust local staff. Adam's responsibilities remained unchanged, trying to get a comfortable parking spot. He wanted to sleep first. Mrs. Kenneth took Vanessa's card and explained the nanny wouldn't live separately but share the penthouse with Cody. Vanessa couldn't believe it, She never dreamed of living in a penthouse. She didn't know how to live in a hotel and worried about security. In the elevator, she reassured herself she'd be next to Cody, who had been through a lot. It wasn't about the lost belongings in the mansion but about the boy's safety, which had been taken from him just like his mother. Hoping Cody was still awake, Vanessa knocked on his door. Mr. Paralan opened it. She thought she had the wrong room but heard Cody's voice saying he'd already picked a room for himself and advised his father to choose another. Oscar invited Vanessa in, realizing she was tired and didn't want to disturb her. She went to the window and admired the night city view, which seemed magnificent. She remembered Mrs. Kenneth saying she'd share a room with Cody and realized she'd distorted the situation. But now she didn't care. She imagined how huge the numbers would be. Vanessa entered a small corridor and noticed only 3 rooms on the floor, for her, Cody, and Oscar. She felt a little embarrassed and suggested taking another room. Oscar wanted her to stay by his son's side and wouldn't accept refusal. Vanessa realized they'd share a bathroom, which embarrassed her more. Oscar grinned and told her to feel at home, hinting they'd stay long. Soon Vanessa put Cody to bed. He was curious how long they'd stay, but she didn't know. Cody asked about the fire alarm. Vanessa assured him it was fine and joked she could set fire to the curtains to check. She leaned closer and promised she wouldn't hesitate to do it for his sake. The boy thanked her for her care. She left him to sleep, wishing him good night. Leaving his room, Vanessa realized she hadn't showered yet. Preparing for a shower, she hoped the water sound wouldn't wake anyone. Under the hot stream, she stayed until sure the smoke smell was gone. Putting on a soft robe and combing her hair, Vanessa realized she could quickly get used to such luxury. She remembered it wouldn't last long but liked her current conditions. Mr. Paralan appeared. She thought he should be asleep. He noticed no one cared for her bruises. She objected when he showed her a first aid kit and said she had treated her wounds. Oscar insisted on bandaging them. It was the least he could do now. Amid the turmoil, Mr. Paralan didn't forget Vanessa had dragged his son from the fire. He apologized for being harsh. Vanessa said it was her duty, as was Oscar's. He was saddened realizing he couldn't protect his child. He recalled their pre-fire conversation, unsure what to do if she left. Vanessa assured him she would never leave Cody. She admitted someone once pulled her out of a burning house the same way. She was proud of that woman and now could do what she did for Cody because of her. After Oscar finished bandaging her legs, Vanessa thanked him. He was about to rest but remembered something. He took a small key from his pocket and handed it to her. She didn't understand what it was. Oscar explained it was the key to her room so she could lock herself for security. He admitted it was more pleasant for him to have her on the floor than Nick, who carried knives everywhere, even to the bathroom. Mr. Paralan left, bidding her good night. Alone, Vanessa tried to understand what she was getting into. Tired, she realized she needed to do something for Cody's safety. She decided to start by reviewing the hotel's CCTV cameras to identify vulnerabilities. Looking around, she noticed cameras covered almost all areas and a porter was at every entrance. The hardest part would be managing guests. It was harder to check them than staff. She also decided Cody shouldn't leave the room alone to keep him safe. Remembering something else, she wrote a letter to Barbara saying she had decided to stay and asked her to send a set of uniforms to the hotel. The next morning, Vanessa tried to call Cody out for breakfast, but he was embarrassed to leave like that. She promised to go shopping immediately after. Oscar appeared, thinking his son wasn't ready yet. Cody came out and asked his father to convince the nurse he couldn't appear in public in that state. Nick teased the boy, calling him a cute charmer. Oscar remarked that the hotel pajamas definitely wouldn't fit Cody, upsetting the boy. because his father had a suit and he did not understand why he did not take one for him, but his father reminded his son that he had already grown up. Anyway, the boy agreed that it was better to wear it than to have no clothes at all, and the nurse promised him that they would make an urgent order from the tailor. Now Cody had only to wear cute shoes, which he did not like very much. While the boy was pulling on his shoes, Oscar, Nick, and Anna discussed the need to open new businesses. Nick still suggested focusing on what had happened recently, but Mr. Paralan thought Anna would deal with it perfectly. The babysitter was talking to Cody at the time, promising him they would go to any store he wanted right after eating. A few hours later, they were already returning with a few packages, and Cody was happy with his purchases. The boy immediately told his father that he now had a lot of new ties and several wonderful suits. Oscar thought they were back quickly, but his son convinced the salespeople that it was better to work with him. Vanessa came up and honestly admitted that they had spent twice as much as they had planned, and the boy, pleased that he now looked presentable, commanded that he wanted to go back to drawing class. Mr. Paralan was against it, thinking it was dangerous to go there, and asked his son not to return to the matter. Then the nanny suggested that the boy enroll in some other drawing class, but he wanted to see Clark. Oscar didn't know who Clark was, and Vanessa explained he was another boy in the class. Cody also believed his friend needed guidance and could not be allowed to make his way through the world alone. Then the nanny suggested they could invite this boy to them and said she could find contacts through the school. She reminded him they could have another day by the pool, which Cody really liked, but now he needed new swimming trunks as well. Mr. Paralan asked his son who his friend's parents were, and he said they worked as dentists. Oscar thought for a while and then agreed to receive his son's friend with his nanny but reminded Vanessa to keep an eye on her. The next day, Cody and his nanny were standing at the door waiting for Clark to arrive. He and his nanny arrived at the agreed time, and the boys were very happy to see each other. Clark's nanny, whose name was Allison, admitted her pupil missed his friend very much even after the incident in class. Clark himself had already approached Cody not empty-handed and gave him a new little duck because he heard that his house burned down. This seemed very cute to the son of the mafioso, as the hotel did not express a desire to provide him with such a bath toy. Vanessa suggested the boys change in their room and then go up to the roof to the pool. Soon Cody was showing his friend the way, and he was admiring everything, not only him but also his nanny, who had never been to the penthouse. As Vanessa was getting ready to settle down, she suddenly heard a familiar voice calling out to her. Turning around, she saw Nick sunbathing and immediately asked what he was doing there. He gave her one attempt to guess and then added that today was the day by the pool, and he did not want to miss such an opportunity. Nick admitted that the boss was working with Anna today, and his talents were not in demand. Vanessa remarked that his talents were indeed not sophisticated, but Nick did not find it funny. He added that he would only scare everyone, so he allowed Anna to collect information. At first, Vanessa thought this man was talking about the fire that had occurred in the Paralan house, but Nick was in no hurry to answer and calmly sipped his chilled drink. However, the nurse did not take her eyes off him, and then he hinted that she herself had guessed correctly. Nick also suggested this business could be done by one of his people or rather someone from the family, but after a couple of seconds, he added it could even be someone from the staff. Hearing that the arsonist could be a person from the staff, the nanny thought about what had happened to her family in the same way. Now Vanessa was even more convinced that the same man from Paralan was responsible for both events. At that moment, the girl realized she was one step closer to solving the puzzle, but at the same time, sad memories flooded back to her. She was distracted from her thoughts by Allison, who asked permission to take her room key. Clark's nanny explained the reason for this request. There was a queue for the bathroom, and she really needed it. Vanessa agreed. Then the boys called her to join their fun game, and she decided not to refuse them. Allison walked over to Vanessa's bag and pulled out the key. Looking around a bit as if she was going to steal something, her behavior seemed a little strange to Nick, although he heard Vanessa allow her to take the key. Meanwhile, the girl continued splashing with the kids in the pool, playing one game or another, and Cody suggested Vanessa be a shark. Vanessa said she was already a shark and suggested Allison be that fish. The nurse looked around and noticed Allison had been gone for quite some time, which was alarming. Vanessa decided to check it out and asked the boys to continue playing without her for now. She also asked Nick to look after the kids and for the key to the room. Vanessa had a strange obsessive feeling, and Nick noticed something was wrong too. Nick dialed Mrs. Kenneth's number so she could go up to the roof and replace him. He told Vanessa to go, and he would join as soon as Mrs. Kenneth appeared. He gave the girl his key. Vanessa rushed up the stairs, hoping she was wrong about Allison. Quietly opening the door to the room, Vanessa began to look through a thin crack at what was happening. At first, she didn't see Allison anywhere and realized she was probably in one of the rooms, most likely Cody's. Vanessa decided to start with this room, took the key to the door from her hiding place, then opened the door wide. Vanessa declared that the bathroom was not in this room. Allison was very afraid she had been caught and began to come up with excuses that she was just lost. The nanny did not listen and immediately pushed the suspect aside, then locked the door so she could not escape. This frightened Clark's nanny very much. After that, Vanessa asked her why she had come here and took the bag from her. Allison was even more frightened, realizing now the owner of the room could expose her. As she shook the contents out of her bag, Vanessa saw several items including wire cutters and a screwdriver. She also found a listening device, a primitive build, which Allison had not yet installed. The mafioso nanny began to interrogate the detainee about how many more bugs she had already managed to install, but Allison did not confess. Vanessa then used her skills and immediately began to look around the room with a trained eye. The first thing she noticed was that the alarm clock was no longer in its place but moved a little. She also noticed an additional light flashing in the smoke detector, which should not be there. After examining the walls, Vanessa found a decoy socket, another wiretapping device. Having collected all the devices in a pile, Vanessa could not understand what kind of monster would put bugs in a child's room. Then she heard a knock on the door and immediately called Nick, who hurried to open it. Seeing the bugs, Nick decided to take the detainee to Oscar's room before she did something else. Allison swore she didn't know anything, but Nick didn't believe her and assumed the boy Clark might be involved too. Clark's nanny immediately yelled that they should not touch him because she should not have lost sight of him at all. While Nick was taking Allison away, she continued to claim that the devices were not hers and that she knew nothing about them. Vanessa returned to the pool and offered the boys an ice cream treat, not giving any impression that something had happened in the room. They were so happy with the treat that they did not ask where Allison had gone or where Vanessa was. Mrs. Kenneth approached the nurse and asked if everything was all right. Vanessa reported that Nick would take care of everything a little later. Returning to the room, Clark asked Cody's permission to visit him again. He did not mind. Then they met Mr. Paralan, who was glad his son had a fun day. Nick shared with the nanny that Allison had confessed everything but did not know who they were or why she had been instructed to install the bugs. When Vanessa asked who had assigned her the task, she learned that the clerk was Clark's mother. Then a driver came up to Oscar and informed him that he had some important guests. Cody's father realized it was his friend's mother. When Clark saw his mother, he could not understand what she was doing there, but she had come to correct some mistake. Mr. Paralan immediately recognized the woman, and before he could think further, he realized Clark was her son. Vanessa asked Nick who Madame Colt was and found out she was the head of the French mafia. Oscar couldn't believe his son had said Clark's parents were dentists, but Madame Colt explained that her husband was a dentist. Nick whispered to the nanny that this explained how the mafia had been able to take over the prescription drug market. Mr. Paralan, though happy to greet Madame Colt, still had one unresolved question. By this, he referred to her actions toward the Paralan family and showed her a bound Allison. At the same time, Oscar made it clear he was not going to demand an apology and hinted that Madame Colt would have to pay for this in another way. He also made it clear he could do as he saw fit with Allison if Madame Colt did not make amends. Madame Colt said there were enough nannies at every step and saw no value in this worker, so Oscar could keep her. While Allison, frightened to death, begged her mistress for mercy, Oscar said they were not in the market to bargain. Madame Colt admitted that Mr. Parolan had caught her but said she knew it before his men destroyed her wiretap. She added that the Parolan family had invited her son to their place, and she only took advantage of the moment. She then threatened Oscar, saying this was her city, and if he forgot that, the fire would be the least of his problems. After that, Madame Colt grabbed her son's hand and dragged him home. Clark barely had time to say goodbye to his friend before leaving with his mother. Oscar began to interrogate Cody about what he took away from all this. Cody admitted he did not like Clark now. Mr. Parolan was glad his son understood something and sent him to change for dinner. There was still an issue to resolve with Allison. Nick suggested throwing her into the sea, and Adam was going to check the number for wiretapping again. Oscar then turned to Vanessa and stated she should have protected Cody and not introduced him to other mobsters. The girl stammered because she had no idea who Clark's mother really was. However, she admitted she should have vetted Clark's family before inviting him. Mr. Parolan smiled and said he was just teasing her, which shocked her a little. He also noticed Vanessa had caught Allison well and that she was no match for his son's nanny. Deciding that was all, the girl asked to go get ready for dinner, but Oscar was going to go with them. After a while, they were met in the restaurant by an employee who kindly escorted them to a table. Mr. Parolan began to study the menu and was soon ready to order. Vanessa and Cody also opened the folders with the list of dishes. The boy took the same folder the adults were looking at. A waiter came up to him and offered a special children's menu, but Cody refused because he wanted fish fillets. The waiter explained that only adult portions were served, but Cody continued to demand the dish. The nanny noticed Cody had ordered fillets yesterday and the day before but had not eaten them each time and suggested he order pasta. Oscar intervened and asked to bring fillets as well as baked potatoes with spices. Vanessa ordered more chicken, wine, and pasta. Although Cody did not want pasta, the nanny explained it was for her. The boy began drawing on a napkin, and Vanessa realized he was not very concerned about what had happened. The girl considered it innocent for children to play together but also understood anyone in the city could be an enemy. She knew that if she tried to tear Cody out of his father's world, it might put him in even greater danger. Looking at Oscar, Vanessa noticed he wasn't worried, but she could never understand what he was thinking. Mr. Parolan decided to talk about the fire. It seemed strange to Vanessa that he should remember it here. He said Vanessa had been dragged out of the burning house and asked when it happened. The girl understood what fire he meant but thought her boss had already forgotten about it. Then the nanny realized Oscar was just waiting for this moment, knowing she would not be able to avoid talking in front of the child. Cody didn't know his nanny's house had burned down as well, and he wondered how it happened. Vanessa began by saying she was a little older than he was when the accident happened. A fire broke out abruptly in her house. She was very scared and did not know what to do. Vanessa was lucky because she had a nanny who saved her from certain death. Cody listened sympathetically, as Vanessa had saved him when they had a fire. The boy became curious if his nanny had lost all her things because he could not forget the burned duckling. Vanessa admitted she had lost not only all her belongings in the fire but absolutely everything. Then she smiled sweetly and said she was not discouraged, just like Cody and his father. She assured the boy he would not have time to blink before his new home would be ready. Cody demanded there be a drawing room in the new house, but his father specified the house would be an exact copy of the old one. The boy suggested that since the library burned down, he could use this room. Oscar still objected a little, and the nanny assured the boy he needed books very much. Cody agreed some art books could be left somewhere in the corner, but he also wanted a duck pond in the backyard. Oscar promised to convey his son's wishes to the architects. The nanny tried to understand what else the boss wanted to ask, knowing he couldn't lie in front of children since they were his weakness. Mr. Paralan remained silent, convincing the nurse it was not worthwhile to expect honesty from him. After the meal, they all left the restaurant, and the clerk again did not leave without flattering wishes. Already in bed, Cody was worried there might be bugs in Clark's gift. Vanessa checked the duckling very carefully. The boy calmly put the toy on the pillow next to him so he would not be lonely. The girl waited until Cody, wrapped in a blanket, began to fall asleep and was about to leave. Then Cody wondered if Clark was really his friend or if he couldn't be friends with such a boy. This question was a little unexpected for the nanny. But she still explained that everything depended only on the two of them and that the fact their parents didn't get along shouldn't affect their friendship. Cody believed family should come first. Vanessa confirmed that family can come first, but that doesn't prevent having other things in life. Cody fell asleep, and the nanny, leaving his room, thought not everything was as bad as she had feared. She went to the kitchen where Mr. Paralan was making himself a drink with ice. Vanessa approached him, wanting to talk about something important. Oscar thought she meant what he said at dinner, but she decided to talk about his son. He turned his full attention to her, and she remembered the night in the garden when he had spoken of purpose. She was curious about what he had in mind for Cody and asked him honestly. Oscar had many plans, but for his son, it was more of a dream. He looked thoughtfully at Vanessa and called it hope. Setting the glass down, he confessed that he wished his son to be free. Vanessa didn't quite understand. He whispered that he wanted Cody not to have a life like his, not to see him as a role model. Oscar wanted a real life for his son, one where he could make his own choices. Vanessa realized he meant the kind of choices Oscar had made. He continued that if he gave his son freedom now, he would surely follow in his footsteps. At the same time, he wanted to keep Cody close to protect him but also to give him a way to be free. Vanessa understood Oscar couldn't do that himself, but he trusted her to help shield the boy from bad influences. After thinking a moment, Vanessa concluded that meant separating Cody from his father. Oscar agreed if it was best for everyone. He asked the nanny to help Cody find another path. Vanessa thought Oscar might be ill to speak so openly against the mafia. He chose his words carefully now, and if he truly wanted safety for Cody, she agreed to help. She promised to do everything to shield the boy but knew she would need something in return. She also recalled how Oscar had already manipulated her. Their conversation was interrupted by a vibrating phone in Oscar's pocket. He answered happily. The caller was John Lee, who had received a message from Oscar. Oscar began discussing a lucrative proposal. Vanessa realized their conversation was over and thought about going to her room. She felt foolish believing in Oscar's sincerity, knowing he didn't truly need her protection. As she moved to leave, Oscar called her back to discuss something the next day at 10 a.m. Left alone, Vanessa thought Oscar was too far gone and had chosen his path. She needed to focus on the only person in the family who could be saved. The next day, Vanessa and Cody worked on a list. The boy was checking if he had written everything correctly. He wanted to buy 2 sets of watercolors, but Vanessa advised one for now, the second later. Oscar came in and saw the long list, asking what it was. Cody explained it was a list of things to draw because many had burned down. Oscar started to read but didn't understand why 2 aprons were on the list. Cody explained it was in case Clark came. He also knew their families were strained but believed the Colts would soon see they were no threat. Oscar confirmed things would return to normal soon. Nick was surprised by Cody's optimism. Cody wanted to go shopping, but Vanessa told him to wait until after lunch because Oscar wanted to discuss something. Oscar planned to leave Nick with Cody, though he thought the boss wanted to see him at the meeting. Cody said the adults should discuss everything in front of him, since he planned to stay. Vanessa saw an opportunity to start building distance between father and son. She began the meeting by discussing camera angles and how to calculate the degree using a formula. Cody found it boring and quietly asked Nick to leave before Vanessa started making diagrams. When Oscar was alone with Vanessa and Anna, they continued. Oscar noticed Vanessa had a great idea to discourage Cody. After thanking her, she asked what he wanted to discuss. He admitted it wasn't about video surveillance but about aspects related to their operation. Oscar revealed his plan to sabotage Madame Colt. Though he was warned not to, he disliked being ordered. Vanessa was disappointed, thinking it was about Cody's safety, but since Colt's nanny had bugged his son's room, Oscar believed this was necessary. They had provoked him, and consequences were coming. Anna wondered what he intended to do. Oscar said he wouldn't stage an open showdown but had offered a lucrative deal to John Lee, nicknamed the Rabbit, more profitable than the French. Oscar planned to offer genuine, high-quality Italian designer bags to undercut the French contract. Vanessa imagined the French mafia selling branded factory parts and the triad using them to make fakes in China. She quickly calculated selling at a loss to compete but agreed if done long-term it could pay off due to connections with the triad in Chicago. Anna agreed but feared it might not work. Oscar planned a second attack to strike their weak point. Vanessa understood and refused to hack the French mafia but Oscar only asked if she knew whether local mafia used cryptocurrency for money laundering. Crypto exchanges were increasingly regulated, increasing risk. He asked if popular online games could be used, where players buy items to increase points, which could be cashed out legally to accounts or online wallets. Anna said Madame Colt was old school and likely had a business. Oscar objected that Madame had few businesses to launder such money. Vanessa suggested a casino, but Anna said Madame was against it, believing casinos were for plebeians. Vanessa then offered art galleries as an option. Anna got excited, remembering Colt owned the House of Light, sparking Oscar's interest in traditional money laundering. Vanessa proposed using modern tech instead, like NFT auctions. Her idea helped Oscar, who let her go. On the way, she wondered if provoking Madame Colt was right. She doubted if she was a good role model for Cody dealing with his father's business. Yet keeping Cody safe meant helping Oscar anticipate threats. The question remained if Madame Colt was truly a threat. Lost in thought, Anna approached Vanessa to say she was restoring data lost in the fire and realized she didn't know Vanessa's last name. Anna wanted to write it down. Vanessa didn't understand why, since no staff had asked before. Anna smiled slightly, hinting that keeping her last name secret could raise suspicion. Vanessa didn't see it as a secret but didn't know Nick or Adam's real names. Anna pressed, and Vanessa gave the name Smith. Anna thanked her and left. Vanessa realized Anna was up to something but wouldn't learn anything from the fake name. That evening, Oscar took Cody and Vanessa to the drawing room. Cody boasted about his purchases but suddenly froze, staring at the doors in fright, as if seeing a ghost. Vanessa, whom he accidentally pushed, tried to find out what happened. Cody said he'd forgotten his sketchbook and needed it that night. Vanessa didn't understand the panic but prepared to get it. Oscar praised her reflexes but Vanessa wasn't amused. Oscar wanted to apologize but 2 days later, Cody noticed many people arriving, everyone fussing about something. He realized something large-scale was being prepared. Vanessa heard him muttering and wondered why, as everything looked calm. Cody admitted he knew the city was full of relatives. Vanessa suggested a party might be planned, but Cody said no one had told him anything. Vincent and Lisa weren't there, and only adults were present, meaning it was business-related and they apparently hadn't dealt with Clark's mother. Cody wanted to ask his father about it, but Vanessa explained Oscar would not return until dinner. Cody was not willing to give up and said he would find out everything as soon as his father came home. 2 hours later, when Oscar returned, the boy began asking questions at the table and said he would organize a trip for them. Vanessa realized Oscar was doing this for Cody's safety but asked for how long. Oscar admitted for 2 days. Cody shouted that he knew something was happening and asked why the whole family had gathered. Oscar asked his son not to bother himself, but Cody refused to calm down. He shouted he would not allow himself to be sent away and that he could help his father. Cody stated that one day he would be ready for that day, but Oscar nervously hoped it would never come. From this sudden change, Cody fell silent, unsure what to say. Oscar repeated that he would go on the trip without question, but Cody insisted he didn't want to go anywhere. The child came to his senses, left the table, and ran out of the dining room, worrying Vanessa. She thought Oscar was making her job harder. She intended to talk to Cody, but Oscar grabbed her arm and explained she should be ready to take Cody to the shelter by morning. Oscar said this was a turning point, and she should try to distance Cody from him. Vanessa understood that only Cody himself could change his mind. Arriving at Cody's room, Vanessa knocked, but Cody sent her away, saying as long as she was on his father's side, there would be no conversation. Vanessa tried to explain that his father was on his side and both wanted the best for him, but Cody didn't respond. Vanessa decided to return later, realizing it was better to start packing her suitcases. Going to her room, she began packing when Anna suddenly entered. Vanessa asked what she needed. Anna said the trip was a mistake and added that Vanessa wasn't who she said she was, meaning she was hiding something. Anna didn't know if it was dangerous but did not believe Vanessa got the nanny job by accident. She said that if Vanessa had ulterior motives, she wouldn't leave here unharmed. Anna assured Vanessa that if either of them got hurt, Vanessa's loved ones would never be safe. She couldn't talk to Oscar about it yet because there was no evidence. Suddenly, wolves appeared on the doorstep. Anna understood that if she was wrong, losing Vanessa would be critical. She said she wouldn't allow harm to come to Vanessa or Cody. Anna knew she would have to believe Vanessa given what she had already done to protect Cody. She asked if she could count on Vanessa until it was over. Vanessa told her not to worry. Vanessa said Anna could be calm about Oscar because not everyone was as close to him as she and Nick. Anna confirmed that's why Oscar had called them. She didn't understand why Vanessa was so calm about getting involved in a mafia war. Anna hoped everyone knew what they were doing and said although it wasn't her job to protect him, she couldn't stand aside. Later, Vanessa went to Oscar and confessed she had something for him. She gave him access to the hotel's security system so he could see when enemies appeared. Oscar asked if Vanessa had talked to Cody, and she said the boy did not want to communicate yet. Oscar said Cody would calm down, but Vanessa insisted that as a father, he should talk to his son himself. Oscar said he couldn't because there were things he couldn't tell Cody. Vanessa decided she would try herself and promised to protect him. She said they would return in 2 days after Oscar announced everything had calmed down. Suddenly, Vanessa wondered what she would do if Oscar didn't tell her, hinting he might die. She asked where to take Cody next, if he had close relatives or confidants. Oscar sighed heavily and said there was no one like him. He wondered what would happen and said if he didn't contact Vanessa after 2 days, they should both be as far away as possible. Vanessa thought Cody should stay with her and tried to explain she couldn't take him. Oscar reminded her he had paid for her services for a year in advance, so it was her job. He added Cody should stay with her until the contract ended, then she could decide what to do. Vanessa was a little frightened seeing how worried Oscar was and that he didn't know what he was asking for. She tried to offer options, but Oscar asked her not to make him beg. Oscar gave Vanessa a look she couldn't refuse. Still, she insisted she disagreed and explained he couldn't leave Cody. If he decided to fight, he had to do it to the last, and she and Cody would wait until it was over. After a few seconds of silence, Oscar admitted he understood but wasn't in a hurry to let go of her hand. Then, unexpectedly, he brought Vanessa's hand to his lips and kissed it. She was surprised and embarrassed but couldn't respond. Oscar promised they would meet again. Late that evening, when everyone was asleep, the door to Cody's room opened slightly, letting in little light. Someone entered quietly to avoid waking him. A shadow of an adult appeared above the sleeping boy, holding a rag. Cody felt a hand covering his mouth so he couldn't scream. As he slept, he didn't immediately realize it was Vanessa, who motioned for him to be quiet. When Vanessa let go, Cody whispered that another fire had started. She explained it was time to leave and asked him to get ready. Cody said it was the middle of the night. Vanessa confirmed and said that's why they could get him out unnoticed so no one could follow. Cody recalled he had said he wouldn't go anywhere and wouldn't get ready. Vanessa explained his father had provoked an attack on the hotel and there would be a shootout. She assured him she wouldn't let him stay regardless of what his father said and that he didn't know anything about her. She said she took responsibility for his safety. The boy objected, saying she couldn't just take him. Vanessa said if he wasn't quiet, she would put him to sleep until they reached safety. She asked him to choose. After a moment, Cody said she was as scary as his father. Vanessa didn't argue and said it was because she was his nanny. She asked him to get ready again and left the room. Vanessa hurried the boy, explaining it was safer to take the stairs. As she walked down the hallway, she saw Oscar standing at his door's threshold, silent. Neither turned around. Vanessa continued with Cody. Later, Oscar went downstairs to the others and said he had contacted other mafia families, and they would stay away. Nick said they couldn't allow the set to interfere. Adam asked everyone to monitor the cameras. They saw a suspicious man in a raincoat and hat enter the restaurant with a suspicious case. Oscar realized they were watching live. Nick offered to intercept the man immediately, but Oscar said it was better to wait and see why he came. They saw the man hide the case behind a huge flower pot and then leave slowly. Oscar asked Nick to send a specialist to inspect the case for explosives. Soon they were informed it was definitely explosives, small but fragmentation, with a timer set for 7 hours. Nick calculated the explosion would occur at 6 p.m., just in time for dinner. Adam remembered Oscar usually had dinner with Cody at that time. Oscar got angry, realizing someone was trying to remove his son. Nick was worried the attackers didn't even pretend to minimize damage. Nick said 7 hours was enough time to take the bomb out of the city and sink it in the river. Oscar said the bomb should explode here. Nick was shocked, not understanding why. Oscar asked to inform the hotel manager discreetly so no one else found out. Everything had to go according to the enemy's plan. Adam said the mobsters might notice no one would come for dinner. Oscar explained Colt's men would launch the attack thinking they had the advantage and try to finish them off before the police arrived. Oscar said when the attack began, they would destroy their opponents. He ordered everyone to assemble on the radio, adding Madam Colt's men would arrive in the evening. Meanwhile, Vanessa and Cody continued on their bikes. Cody wondered why they hadn't gone by car. Vanessa explained people knew what his father's car looked like and they didn't know where mafia spies were stationed. Cody was indignant about wearing plebeian clothes that seemed childish and stupid. Vanessa explained he'd be uncomfortable in a suit, and Cody agreed. Vanessa said to think of the clothes as a disguise so no one suspected someone from the Paralan family was hiding in children's clothes. She thought it was a lovely day to ride bikes and that their safe place was a cottage by the river. Vanessa said they could watch birds and feed ducks, but Cody didn't understand how to do this while his father was fighting for his life. Vanessa explained the best thing they could do was stay safe. The boy still disagreed, believing it was safest to be around his father. Meanwhile, Oscar prepared for the operation, and his men gathered weapons and supplies. Oscar took out his phone repeatedly, wanting to call his son but realizing he couldn't. Kyle approached and reported the enemies were close, telling Oscar to be prepared. At the same time, a relative suggested that Cody get out of there as far as possible while he could. But Mr. Paralan said his son had already gone to safety with Vanessa. Kyle initially didn't understand who he was talking about, then remembered it was the nanny he had met at that dinner. He added that they needed to stay away because the bomb could trigger more explosions. Mr. Paralan appreciated his concern and begged him not to proceed with it, assuring him the two were safe. He also asked Kyle to concentrate, as he needed him to cover the garage exit when the time came. The relative wasted no more time on unnecessary chatter and assured Oscar he could rely on him. The man promised to do everything possible not to let his brother down. Meanwhile, Cody continued pedaling the bike, repeatedly asking when they would reach the right place. It was 4 minutes to 6 in the evening when he saw an old woman overtaking him on the same vehicle. The boy couldn't believe he now looked weaker than some old woman. Then he saw a very small child pass him as well. Determined not to look weak, Cody pushed a little harder and soon overtook both, catching up with the babysitter. Vanessa offered to stop for a snack, and the boy was glad for a break. Dropping his bike, he prepared to eat sandwiches, which he didn't like much, but Vanessa revealed she had kept a package of chocolate milk, hoping to cheer him up. The boy was happy at first but soon disappointed when he realized the milk was warm. The nanny noticed and said if he didn't want it, she'd drink it herself. Cody objected loudly, claiming it was his. Sitting in a clearing, they had a small picnic. The boy asked if his father had called Vanessa. She explained that Oscar must still be too busy, but Cody worried something might go wrong and asked to call him. Vanessa reminded him Oscar had asked to call only as a last resort and told him not to worry. She assured him she remained calm, confident nothing terrible would happen to his father. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the restaurant, smashing everything to smithereens as the opponents had planned. Oscar and his men were still in cover, and as the smoke cleared, Nick ordered the others to move into position. The bandits scattered to designated places to accept the enemy attack but were immediately met by others who were in a hurry and began shooting. Mr. Paralan's men didn't understand how an ambush was set up so quickly, and a shootout broke out. Anna explained to Oscar that the police should arrive in 10 minutes and firefighters in 5. Mr. Paralan realized they had little time and ordered a swift end. Oscar, Anna, and Nick opened fire on the enemies, sparing no bullets or effort. A bullet hit Oscar, but his relative barely dodged it. Anna made a trademark somersault jump while shooting at surrounding enemies. Madame Colt, hiding behind a large flower pot with a weapon, realized their plan was unraveling. From behind a pillar, she saw Mr. Paralan aiming at her, clearly not intending to waste time negotiating. Horrified, she prepared to take the bullet, but the flower pot behind her shattered instead. She knew Oscar never missed and understood it was a warning shot. She yelled at her men to retreat and headed for the nearest exit herself. Nick shouted trying to stop them, but Anna said it was time to leave since the firefighters had arrived. He realized she was right and couldn't believe Oscar let Madame Colt go. Paralan only ordered everyone to get out quickly, not explaining why. From his point of view, they had achieved their goal. Meanwhile, Cody kept asking Vanessa if his dad had called, unable to hide his excitement. Vanessa explained that the lack of news was good news, so there was no need to be upset. The boy insisted they shouldn't have left his father. The girl understood Cody was blaming her and said he had the right to do so. Cody felt he had to believe it was her idea and not to be angry with his father. Still, he knew it was actually his father's order to send him away. Vanessa asked him not to be so strict with his dad because he already worried a lot. Cody remained angry that his father didn't want to make him his right hand and forced him to stay away. He asked her to take him to drawing class and tell him nonsense about how great life is if you're not in a mafia family. The nanny assured him that wasn't true. Seeing how sad Cody was, she tried to comfort him and offered to tell him a secret. This piqued the boy's interest, and he prepared to listen attentively. Vanessa confessed that she had also grown up in a mafia family like him, and she too had felt sad. Cody was surprised and clarified if her parents were also mafiosi. The girl put her finger to her lips, signaling for quiet, explaining she hadn't told anyone before and asked if he could keep it a secret. He swore not to tell anyone, sealing the oath by linking their little fingers. He asked what her parents did, and she said they transported jewelry and money. She admitted they were killed in one night. Cody asked who had done it. Vanessa said it no longer mattered because the reason for killing is always the cycle of hatred, replaced by generations. She urged the boy to see what was happening to his father now. Someone believed he was wrong and attacked him. The nanny added it would end when one party was destroyed, but she didn't want that to happen to Cody. Vanessa knew what it was like to be born into such a family and wanted Cody to consider other options. She wanted him to be safe and happy, even though his family was not conducive to that. Cody remembered his mother, and Vanessa said she wanted the same thing and that her son would not give up on his dream. The nanny also said she didn't think Oscar distrusted or doubted his son, which was why he sent them on the trip. Vanessa assured Cody that his dad was trying to protect him from things that could hurt him. The boy realized his father was just afraid and the nanny confirmed it. Suddenly, Cody burst into tears, worried his father might be hurt. He repeated that he should be next to his father to feel better and calmer. The girl hugged him, promising she would make his dad better and believed everything would be fine. She added that Cody was the best thing that had happened to his father, and for that, neither of them needed to work for the family. Later, when Oscar and his men reached a safe place, he asked if everything was in place. Nick immediately said someone was missing and asked the boss to guess who. Then he clarified he meant Kyle, who was supposed to watch the garage exit but was gone. Oscar began to suspect it was Colt's fault, who had run away. Anna suddenly remembered Kyle had been at an art gallery exhibition. Oscar guessed Kyle could be working with a French woman. Nick didn't understand why Kyle would betray the family, as he wasn't a coward like Roger. Anna explained Kyle was third in seniority, and her partner assumed Kyle was trying to pressure the Dawn, targeting Oscar and Cody. Mr. Paralan recalled the relative had seen the tracking device and terrible guesses crept in. He frantically tried to call Vanessa, but she never answered. The phone seemed to beep endlessly. Oscar ordered Adam to call her, but Anna worried about his injured leg. He was unbothered, and the girl cursed herself for missing this. Nick realized everything was now in Vanessa's hands and had no doubt the nanny would protect Cody. Meanwhile, Vanessa was reading a fairy tale about a prince and princess to Cody when someone knocked at the door. Cody asked who it could be, but Vanessa was surprised and cautiously checked. She saw Kyle standing outside, smiling and saying Oscar had sent him to pick up his son. The boy assumed it was all over and asked how his father was. Kyle assured him he was fine and invited Cody to go with him. Vanessa checked her phone but saw no message from Oscar. Kyle said to consider his presence as a message. Vanessa noticed there was no signal, as they were in the village, with prior communication interruptions. Cody insisted it was time to go because his dad was waiting. Vanessa objected, surprising him. She explained that when they discussed the terms of return, there was no clause about leaving early. She pointed out to Kyle that if Oscar couldn't reach her, he would have to come in person. Kyle agreed and went to his car. Vanessa was uneasy about why Oscar sent someone else if he wanted to hide their location. She told Cody it was worth leaving but worried that without signal, his father couldn't track them. They agreed Cody would stay until his dad returned, with Vanessa asking him to go to bed while waiting. She understood it wouldn't go smoothly and someone might fall asleep first. Kyle met with his accomplice and said the nanny would fall asleep first. They claimed it was time since the light was off and there was no communication, so she couldn't call for help. Kyle doubted, but his accomplices argued there was no other chance. After a moment, Kyle agreed and ordered his men to kill both the babysitter and the child. By then, Cody was fast asleep next to the little duck and did not hear anything, only sniffled softly. Outside, someone approached the house, and the shadow of an intruder appeared on the window in the moonlight. The man tried to lift the slightly raised window frame to enter, but it resisted. He raised his hand, gun aimed at the sleeping boy, unaware that Vanessa was preparing to attack from the other side. She knocked the pistol out of his hand with her foot, then sharply lowered the window frame, pinning his limb. Cody woke from the noise, frightened but quiet. He saw a hand hanging out of the window and Vanessa raising her pistol, ready to attack. She shot through the window, and the intruder fell with a bullet in the forehead. Vanessa watched for a few seconds, then looked to see if anyone else was nearby. Cody shouted that someone else was approaching from the other side. Vanessa turned, shooting as the man fired toward Cody. She jumped to shield him while shooting back. The second attacker fell, but Vanessa realized she had been hit and felt her strength fading. Cody saw his nanny was injured and was terrified. He ran to help, but she told him to hide behind her, knowing they might not be alone. They stayed still, listening as someone else approached. Vanessa prepared to shoot again.